So let's turn it over to Kristen, and you can commence with your first budget workshop.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm really excited to do this today. Been working really hard with our staff to get it all done, to be able to present to you a financial overview of what we have happening today. So today we're going to talk about operations and priorities. I remind you all I'm terrible at forwarding my slides, so if you see something that I'm saying and it's not on there, remind me. So today we're going to do, like I said, priorities, operations. We'll see some numbers, but today really isn't going to be about numbers. Today is going to be more about direction from you all. Next Tuesday, April 28th, we'll have our second budget workshop where we'll look at the final numbers and we'll make the final decisions, and then go to approve our tentative budget at the May 5th meeting with our public hearing and our budget adoption at June 3rd. Now, as we know, we're kind of in a compressed schedule this year because we got a little bit of a late start on the budget. So that's one of the reasons why we're at 2 workshops instead of 3. If you all like the format and think that it's workable, you can give me individual feedback. We can proceed with going forward with 2 workshops in the future, but I leave that up to you.
I would just add that because there's just 2 workshops, it's more important than ever for us to ask questions as we go along and learn as much as we can.
Absolutely. Please feel free to interrupt. Let me know if you have questions. So what we're going to cover today is a financial overview. Then we're going to have the department presentations from the various staff members. We're going to talk about public safety. We're going to talk about total compensation, and we're going to talk about the capital plan. Then we'll kind of summarize what actions and decisions have been made today and move forward with producing the budget book, hopefully tomorrow, and being able to put our agenda out the latest tomorrow by 5 o'clock. That's what I'm aiming for. If not, it'll move to Thursday morning, but hopefully as a result of today, we can get that done. So what I want to talk about first is how the town budget works. So before we get into a lot of the details, I want to level set how our municipal budgeting process works. I think it's really important to just understand the basis of how we budget in government. It's especially important because we're very different from business or personal finance. Our budget is structured differently, our revenue comes from different places, how we spend it, and most importantly, what risks we have that potentially we see in our future impact all these things. So we're going to talk about all of these. First of all, the budget is driven by planning, and the council strategic plan is at the heart of the budget. You'll note that this year I've attached the strategic plan, the 5 key focus areas, to just about everything we're doing in our budget. And you'll see that as we go through the presentation. You'll also see that as we go through the budget book. Here on this screen, you see our vision statement and our mission statement from the council strategic plan. And our core values. These are the town's core values: respect, transparency, accountability, service excellence, collaboration, and resilience. The budget is built based on the mission, the vision, and the core values of the council strategic plan. On March 12th, we updated that strategic plan, and those updates and the discussion is included in this budget. Here's the key focus areas. We've got our fiscal sustainability, our economic opportunity, our authentic small town community, innovative and high-performing organization, and our infrastructure. Note these icons, because you'll see these icons going forward throughout the presentation and in the budget book. We're using these icons to delineate our focus areas. So as I said, the strategic plan is at the core of how we budget. In addition to that, it's our general plan. It's our policy and process of the town. In addition, we have a number of other plans. We have, obviously, the general plan. We have our pavement management plan. We have our capital improvement plan. We have our redevelopment plan, signage and circulation plans. All of these are at the heart of how we figure out how to spend money. And the recommendations that I make to you are based on all of those plans that we have currently in process right now. So unlike a private business, we have to operate under strict state law. We have an annual legal budget. It must be balanced. It's subject to our expenditure limitation, and we're required to use fund-based accounting. Fund-based accounting means certain revenues can only be used for specific purposes. You see that every year in the budget book. We specifically say which ones are general fund and which ones can only be used for specific purposes, such as our HERF fund, our Highway User Revenue Fund. So one of the things that's really important to understand about municipal budgeting is that not all dollars are interchangeable. You may say you have $13 million budget this year, but of that $13 million, how much of it can you actually spend based on, one, your annual expenditure limit, and two, the strict requirements of the various funds that we have. The general fund is the fund that we use to pay most of our expenditures from. Because we have to comply with the Arizona expenditure limitation, that caps how much we can spend. So the annual expenditure limitation this year has went to about $13,660. It's a small increase from last year's expenditure limit. So everything we do has to be based on that number. So remember that not all dollars are interchangeable, because that'll be important when later on you have to make some decisions on what's being recommended. And I remind you, this is a recommended or a proposed budget. Ultimately, it's your decision how we spend our dollars. As our council, you guide that decision. So the town's budget has two main components. First is our operating budget. This is what you consider to be your day-to-day budget. This is how we get business done on a daily basis. Public safety, staff, our general operations. The FY26 budgeted amount was $8.5 million. For FY27, it will be $8.9 million. You'll see it's not a large increase, it's a moderate increase. And that's due to our fiscal policies of remaining conservative in our projections. Yes, Vice Mayor.
To verify one second, are we going to get copies of this?
Absolutely. Yes. It will be attached to the agenda after the meeting. So the $8.9 million is what we're projecting for this year. Last year, we projected about $8.5 million. For a capital budget, for infrastructure, that's our streets, our drainage, our facilities. Last year, fiscal year 26, we were about 4.7 million. This year, we're at 5.2 million. We'll talk more in detail about capital and what those numbers actually mean, because that goes back to what funds can actually be expended for capital improvements. So for fiscal year 27, and I'll just clarify for everyone, fiscal year 27 is July 1 of 2026 to June 30th of 2027, and that'll be our new fiscal year, FY27. This is the anticipated operating budget, $8,900,000. As you can see from the table, the majority of that funding comes from our municipal sales tax at about 65%. Another 20% comes from our state shared revenue, and another 15% comes from our cost recovery. One of the most important things to understand about operations versus capital is that they act differently over time. Capital is something that we have to plan for and amass before we can actually spend it. Operating, we spend as we go. So considering that about 65% of our revenues come from our sales tax, municipal sales tax, it's important to note why this all matters. And the sales tax can sometimes be volatile. We can't necessarily predict what will happen with sales tax. We can average, we can speculate, but we can't always even come close to a guarantee of what sales tax will look like. The state shared revenue, which is at 20%, is a little bit different because the state does project for us what they anticipate our revenues to be on an annual basis. That projection starts usually in February. I just got the last one yesterday. And it increased a little bit more, which is good, okay? Because that's as a result of the legislative session being started in January and kind of coming to a point where less bills are on the table at this point, less bills that could potentially impact our dollars. And then fees, as you remember in this past fiscal year, we introduced the new fee table where we had some increased fees for our services that cover what we provide to the public. And what we'll do again, every 2 years, those should be evaluated. So in January of 2027, I'll embark again on a investigation of where our fees stand in regards to the rest of the valley. So with fees, we do see limited growth because they are set fees. And it depends on what kind of business is being done in our town. So here's what our city sales tax looks like right now. This is municipal tax. You can see this is we've got fiscal year 20 through fiscal year 25 on this chart. Because we rely so heavily on city sales tax, on municipal sales tax, we operate differently than most other local governments. It's our primary function, right? This is how we bring in money to do our business. So it's always a good position to be overly cautious about what we project for our city sales tax. If you look at the last several years here on the chart, you can see exactly what I mean. We've had highs of over $7 million. We've had lows of under $3 million. In 2020, we're at 3.5 million. So in figuring out how to project for our municipal sales tax, because of this very wide swing that we see, we do a 5-year average. That way we stay conservative in our estimates for the year going forward. This protects us in a sense from overcommitting in years forward. We don't want to spend more than we have at any given time. So using that, this is what.
Can I ask you a quick question on
Yeah.
that last slide? So fiscal year 26 is what we're finishing up. We're going to be going into 27.
Correct.
So I would assume this estimated amount has to be pretty close because we're almost done with the fiscal year, but I'm kind of surprised how much lower it is. How much do you anticipate that changing between now and the end of the fiscal year?
I think we will probably hit definitely over the 5 million mark and maybe at a 5.3.
Do you have any kind of breakdown that you can provide on why it's less?
Yes, you'll see that in the budget book. Part of that'll be what you've seen in the past, a breakdown of each, a percentage of how we receive municipal sales tax in the major categories: construction, accommodation, retail, restaurant. We are actually still pulling that data right now from the state website so that we have the most up-to-date data to share with you. The one thing that we're looking at right now also, again, as I said, sometimes this is fluid up until the last minute for us for budget processing. It looks like it should be about a 10% decrease from last year in our city sales tax overall. But that was the numbers that we had as of, I would say, mid-March.
And you're going to explain why the 10% reduction later?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
because
that'll-
the trend line, if
Yeah.
you were to follow the trend line, it's like, why would it not increase?
Yeah. Part of I surmise, and I think you all will understand this as well, part of it is the construction. The other piece is, in FY25, we had some very specific revenue from sales of properties that we wouldn't have otherwise had. That made a difference for us. That was a lot more money than we would usually have. That would be in regards to, someone help me with the project name?
The View.
The
The
View.
view.
Thank you very much. So That would be one reason we saw such a major increase for '25 with the sale of a variety of properties. And I still think that construction is probably going down, and based on the economy, retail and restaurant most likely have went down as well, just on the general trends of the national economy. But we'll have hard data on that so we can show you how the percentages compared to last year for the breakdown of city sales tax versus how the percentages compare to this year at this exact time.
So Kristen, the 4.73 is where we are close to right now, but you expect it to be at the end of this fiscal year, just over 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, that's based on projection, and what happens is some months city sales tax comes in at the end of the month with a $250,000 drop, right? But we have to average it out. So we have to, it's kind of a wait and see thing.
So am I right that it's like a 2-month delay?
It's a 3-month delay actually. So we're still in February. We're still getting deposits from city sales tax from February. So what we do is we take all the numbers from throughout the year up until February, we run an average of it, and then we add the average in for March, April, May, and June to get to that number. So the difference would be if it comes in higher than what we've averaged. And I do believe it will come in higher than what we averaged for the projection itself. But for base budgeting, it's always good to have at least that baseline of information so that I could provide a balanced budget. And then if there is more, obviously we have things that are considered unfunded mandates that happen throughout the year, things that we haven't planned for. That's extra money in the budget. It's extra money for us to use. So on this one, this gives you the actual breakdown of the amounts. So using that 5-year average, what it comes out to is we project for this year for municipal sales tax, close to $6 million. So that's what based the budgeting process off of. For municipal sales tax, about $6 million in revenue. Then we take that state shared revenue. The state shared revenue is, as you can see, the budget for FY26 was about 1.7 million. The estimate for year end is about 1.7 million. And the budget for next year is about 1.7 million. State shared revenue has stayed the same and most likely will continue. This is based on a number of different factors that are influenced at the state level. This year we see a potential decrease to our HERF funds as a result of legislation. Small increase in what's called the VLT, that's the county lieu tax, vehicle license tax, and then state sales tax doesn't drop significantly, but somewhat. And then income tax itself. If you guys will remember, in past 2 years we've talked about this. We also have the flat rate state income tax. So that's something that is still impacting all of us here in the state based on the 2.2, how much revenue that brings in. And we're still in the process of seeing that shake out, as you can see with the FY25 actuals and then the estimate for this year.
So this amount for the HERF fund, that's estimated if that legislation doesn't pass, correct?
Correct.
So if it does, have you?
Oh, no,
done-
I apologize, Colleen. That one is estimated at the amount if the legislation does pass.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Okay, so if it doesn't pass, then it just gets reflected the following year?
Yeah.
Because you don't adjust it?
No, we don't adjust it in the base, but
Okay.
it would be close to what, it was about $43,000, the adjustment. So
Okay.
it would be close to back to where we were in FY26.
Okay, thanks.
So, just so I'm clear, the adjustment we're talking about is if they suspend gasoline tax? Or what are we talking about? Okay, okay.
Thank you, Colleen. So then in the chart below, you'll see those are the cost recovery fees that I talked about earlier. Those are the costs that we charge to do business here in the town. And in '25, we're at 1.3. We budgeted 135 for 26. We're estimated at 1.4 for 26 coming in, so we're budgeting at the 1.4. And that would be specifically for cost recovery fees. And in the budget book, you'll see the breakdown of the cost recovery fees, so you can see where they came in. And those are our permits, our licenses, development fees, inspection fees, court fees, the whole myriad.
So when we, let's go back to that slide, so when we have the estimate for the budget for FY '27, so we're estimating that we'll have some cost recovery fees from Stage Creek Estates, just baked in there somehow.
Yeah, Stage Creek, Asana is another project, if I'm saying that one correctly. There were 2 other projects as well that I had listed. So I think we should stay on target with where we're at. We didn't have anything significant this year, so it should stay about the same based on the projects we did this year and the projects we're doing next year.
Yeah, because this year we had no real drivers. Right?
No,
Next year we might.
we might. So we'll budget for that.
Mhm.
So why does all this matter when it comes to revenue? We have some risks associated with our revenue. One is economic cycles. Retail and tourism fluctuate quite frequently. Based on what we're seeing at a national level, it's really hard to predict what our economic cycle will be. If someone has that crystal ball, I would like them all to pull it out right now and we can talk through it. But right now our inflation rate is averaged at 3.3 with a potential of reaching, I think, 4.5 in the coming months. So we have to be cautious about our economic cycles. The other piece is legislative changes, like Councilmember Skirty just mentioned. The HERF is one of them. Council, I'll ask you, have we seen any big legislative issues this year beyond that state shared revenue one that you're concerned about?
The moratorium, 40/30, so if that one goes. I think the other one,
The grocery taxes.
the grocery
not
taxes,
moving
tax.
it's
forward.
kind of, it's not
Fell
moving
off.
forward.
Yeah.
It's the sales tax, it's 40/30 for the moratorium.
And then the internet sales tax.
Oh, yeah,
The
but that
internet
one's kind of
sales tax.
be installed as well.
Okay.
What about income tax?
It's
They
the
have to-
internet sales tax.
No, but I mean, the income tax, I mean, there's discussion about whether to match Arizona state income tax
yeah.
to the feds.
The federal.
Depending how that plays,
yeah,
it could
to-
have some
To
impact on
conform to
us.
the federal tax
Oh.
code, that is still up in the air.
Yeah, so
and-
Hobbs is not wanting to participate on any of that, so we'll have to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay. So that's just an excellent example of what we have to, while we're actually building a budget for next year, the things we have to concern ourselves with for next year. So, and I appreciate that our council does keep a close eye on those things. Both Councilmember Amoroso, Councilmember Skirty, and Mayor Crane have been involved in all the legislative calls that we've had since January, and that's a real important tracking factor. That's how we find out these things. And next year, we'll work better at even doing that, so we have more information to provide to council as it occurs. The other piece, of course, is always this population-based state funding. None of us in the Valley, none of us in Arizona, suffer alone in this. Our state shared revenue is based on our population. So our population here in Carefree isn't increasing dramatically, as opposed to some places in the Valley where you see that happening. I use the newest incorporated city, which is the Santan, right? They have 98,000 people. So these are the things we compete against in that state budget, right? Population growth. The other piece is, these are largely outside of our control. What can we do to impact these things, right? So we have to take that into consideration, that because these things are not really within our control, what can we do to mitigate them? And build out, I didn't mention that one, but we're nearing, we will near our build out here in Carefree. So construction fees will decline for us. So we have to figure out alternative ways to generate revenue so that we can make up for those differences as we go forward. And these are the decisions that you as a council will need to make. The good news is Carefree has an outstanding history of conservative forecasting. I think one of the reasons you all weathered the COVID period, even the first economic recession that we saw in 2008, is because you've used this conservative forecasting. This has been your philosophy since the beginning of incorporation of this town. There's also revenue diversification. We know what our challenges are. We know what we can't control. So that gives us the opportunity to figure out what we can. And part of that is through economic development, things like our Northeast Corner, things like our town center. We also continue to have strong reserves that allow us to be in a position that we would have at least 3 to 4 months in the bank if there was to be some kind of major national activity that required us to move in that direction. The other piece of our budget that is so critical is that pay-as-you-go capital. We don't do the work unless we have the money in the bank to do the work. And that is something that is very important when you have a budget such as we have in Carefree. By doing all this, we also avoid debt. I think I told you when I started here in Carefree, I looked at your budget before I came for my interview, and that was one of the first things I looked at, was how much debt does this town have? And amazingly, we have no debt. That is a great position to be in, and we should continue to maintain that position. So where does our money go? Sorry about that. So as you can see from the chart here, it's very similar to last year. I mean, we're off by maybe a 0.5 percentage point in each of these areas now compared to, this was last year's numbers. It was like a 6.3, a 38.5, 28 point something, and so on. So we'll just do the round off. As you can see, public safety remains our largest cost, and we'll talk about that more in a moment, but that has been traditionally where we spend the most of our money, followed by our salaries and benefits, which also is referred to as total compensation, and I'm going to give you some information on that today as well. And then our risk management piece. Our risk management is our insurance, such as the AMRRP, which we've been a member of for over 20 years. That's our risk pool. That's how we get insured. The costs of legal for our town attorneys. The costs of claims as we have claims. So this is where our key cost pressures fall. Obviously in our public safety contracts, inflation, which we really have no control over. And then our other pieces, we have some aging infrastructure here in town that we own. So we must continue to invest in maintaining that infrastructure. And that's something that we've been focusing on even this past year. So just to give you an idea of what inflation has done, so a couple slides from now you'll see public safety. So just like the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, they provide us with our patrol. That went up about 1.5%. When we have persons in court who need to be jailed until they have a court hearing, we pay booking fees and housing fees. They went up about 6% for booking, another 1.5% for housing. These are pretty low increases for MCSO, so it's actually not a bad situation. Fire has went up a little as a result of our existing contract. I remind you, we're still under our existing contract until June 30th of 2026. That will be something we must certainly take into consideration for next year. We will see a significant increase in our public safety cost as of next year's budget. So this year we remain in a pretty static place. The other thing is we saw an increase to workers' compensation of about 3%. The risk pool, I think I mentioned that already. That's about a 13% increase. That's not specific to Carefree. That's specific to the entire risk pool. We're averaging about 10 to 15%. So I budgeted us at the 13%. And then when it comes to our employees and our employee benefits, ASRS has not increased significantly. It barely increased. That's Arizona State Retirement System. And our health insurance, I mentioned this in our last council meeting when we approved our contract, it's only went up 3%, which is 4 percentage points below the national average. So overall with our contracts, we have, I don't feel as though we've had any significant increases, which when we talk about the budget overall, you'll see how that impacts us. So we're in this strong financial position still. We have some high revenue risk because of the city sales tax. There are rising external costs because of inflation and the general economy. So we do have some strategic decisions that we need to make for this year. And then I really believe that part of this year, we should be also planning ahead for next year for some of those significant increases that we'll see in public safety. So I always want you to keep that at the back of your mind. So I want to talk for a minute about total compensation. You will see this in the budget book. There'll be, the budget book is set up a little differently this year. One of the things, if you'll just give me a moment to talk about the budget book. Last year, a number of you heard me talk about how important it is to be recognized for the budget that you generate. Remember I said when I came to get hired here, the first thing I looked at was the budget. In the government world, anyone who's at the executive level in budget, that's executive level in government, that's the first thing they do. They look at the budget. So, and I recognize that our budget was outstanding, written really well. What I did after we finished last year's budget, I took it and I began aligning it with the requirements for that Distinguished Budget Award. So we are close. So what you see in the budget book will be kind of a little bit different than what you saw last year. But it's to align us with the Government Finance Officers Association standards for that Distinguished Budget Awards. And then next budget, I will have the book in place so that we can submit for that award. Our neighbors in Cave Creek get it. A number of our, colleagues in the Valley receive that award. It really isn't an award. What it is an evaluation. It's the Government Finance Officers Association looking at our budget and saying you have exceeded the standards for budgeting. So I think that's an exciting thing to look forward to in the coming years.
Kristen, what kinds of things or what areas are they that are going to be slightly different?
You'll see more, less charting and more tabling of actual figures with dollars. You'll see larger, one of the things we did in our budget book is we broke things out. So you'll see more in larger tables so that there's complete roll-ups of everything. The other piece is the budget book was more of a storytelling document. I've changed it more over to that kind of executive professional so that there's less information about storytelling as opposed to specifically what we need to be doing and what that means. Like you'll see a couple more tables in there that you haven't seen before, like a fund summary. What are all the funds we have and what are we supposed to be using them for? You'll see another table that kind of describes all of the town. We called it Carefree Snapshot. We made it look nice, but it meets what we consider the criteria for having all the data in there that the GFOA requests right up front, the town data. It's just a different tactic with all the same information and just a little less tailored to specifically what we did this or how we did that. The next step that needs to happen to make it meet the standard is one of the things that our budget doesn't do, and you'll see I added this in this year, is we should be comparing our any comparative data, we should be dating it back for at least one full annual year. So you'll see that in the tables. You'll now have the year and the actuals for FY25 in the budget book, along with the FY26, what we budgeted, the FY26, what we estimate, and then the FY27 proposed. So you'll have more data to make determinations off of. So those are just some of the things. The other piece is it will include this information about total compensation, which we had in there. This is just more of a strengthened statement of total compensation, which is a GFOA requirement as well. So the total compensation philosophy, it generally encompasses not only salaries. So an employee has an annual salary, that's the base salary that they make. But it also includes those employer-paid benefits, such as retirement contributions, that's Arizona State Retirement System for us, our health care, which is the RAGIT piece, and those statutory benefits. The things that we must pay are FICA, Medicare, workers' compensation. We have short-term disability and long-term disability. And then we have to budget for, and this was something that came up in our audit this year, we have annual leave provisions, so employees get vacation time and what's called PLT, personal leave time. You have to budget in advance for the potential use or cash out of those amounts at the end of the year. So that bullet point reflects the full cost of employment, and it ensures a more accurate comparison to the market conditions that we see out there throughout the valley and at a national level. So we have 17 full-time equivalent positions. I say approximately because right now, today, we have 16. We have one vacancy. We operate with staffing levels below comparable municipalities. We maintain about 4 employees per 1,000 residents compared to the average of 5.5 or more employees per 1,000 residents in similarly situated communities. This lean staffing model requires employees to perform cross-functional roles while maintaining service levels and regulatory compliance that we have to do. And I don't point that out I point this out for the reason that you can truly see that we operate at a level of staffing that is below the margin. And we do our best to provide exceptional services and meet the council's key focus areas while trying to be innovative and creative in moving our town forward. So that isn't a ploy to get more staff. You can laugh, it's okay. So this is what total compensation is going to look like for this year. And you will have a breakout in the budget book of the salaries and the benefits for each position in our organization. If you look at let's look at the bottom line, total salary and benefits. So the bottom line for 2025 was 1.955, right? FY26, we budgeted 2.19. And then our year-end estimate is about 2.3. Now, going back to what I told you on the prior page about what total compensation is, when someone retires, you have to pay them out their total compensation. So that increased our year-end estimate because we've had a retirement this year. And that's required by the law and by the state of Arizona. So the proposed budget will actually decrease for staffing and benefits for FY27 to 2.3, which is almost unheard of in municipalities. You very rarely see that actually decrease. So we know that, going back to this slide, salary and benefits is a large portion of our operating costs, as is public safety. Public safety will average approximately $3 million this year. Comes out to about almost 40% of our budget. We use the contract model. We contract with Maricopa County Sheriff's Department for our law enforcement in our jail. And as we all know from just our last meeting, Rural Metro for our fire and EMS. We're in a great position that we have negotiated our contract going forward, that we will start in fiscal year 2028, which is July 1 of 2027. That allows us to plan ahead for that contractual increase. This contract that we're still under was a very minimal, about $150,000 increase for this year. And then we also contract for the outside service of animal control, which is really, oh gosh, I hate saying this out loud, dead animal pickup from our roads. Okay. And then, as you know, we subsidize our fire contract. We subsidize our payment to fire. 1% of our sales tax goes automatically to our fire fund. So the city sales tax that we receive it in lump sums. We then immediately take the city sales tax and we break it out. We break it out to the general fund, and then we take that 1% and automatically put it in fire fund. It never even enters the general fund. It goes automatically into the fire fund to pay for the fire contracts. So here's what our law enforcement and fire and EMS contracts look like for this year. As you can see, we're estimating it to be about 2.8 at the year end, and next year it'll be about 2.94, maybe $140,000 increase. That's due to contract increases and those percentages I discussed early. So all this data I've given you, just for today, for this kind of broad overview, we are in a good position financially. Our budget is in a good position financially. It hasn't significantly changed from last year. We have no drastic measures that we need to take. So this is all very positive and will continue to be positive. So I want to switch gears now, and I want to talk about some of the things that you'll see in the budget this year. Some of these things are things you already know are there. Some of these are what we discussed in our strategic update workshop, and we have put them in the key focus areas. If you have any questions as I go along, please feel free to interrupt. I'm just going to be very brief in this part of it, and then the staff will talk more in their budget presentations about how some of these things occur in their departments. So for fiscal sustainability, we have the zoning overlay added into the budget this year, along with, we still have our zoning ordinance and our citizen participation plan still occurring, the completion of that process. So those are what we consider special projects, and those are budgeted for. We have the fire contract with the moderate increase, and we know we have the new fire contract on the table for 2027, so we can start planning for that. We're still moving forward with a number of the software integration pieces that we discussed at the strategic planning update workshop, including the the implementation of our new financial system, which I anticipate will be operating by the fall of this year, which means for next budget, we'll have even more tables to look at. And in addition to that, we're looking at the records management process and how to integrate some of our systems such as Granicus with our Laserfiche and what we can have on our website. For economic opportunity, you see we have the Invest in Carefree initiative, which both economic development and communications will be working on this year. That includes promotional materials that we can have access to provide to potential developers or business owners who are interested in joining us here in Carefree. We have the facade program continuing, and then we have the continuing discussion, let me say this clearly, discussion about town hall, what direction the council would like to see us pursue as staff to investigate that further. Then for our authentic small town community, we have a focus this year on the desert gardens. We budgeted money in there so that we can make some of these foundational improvements that we could probably do in a more timely manner as a result of using contractors instead of in-house staff. So we're kind of excited about that. Our visitor center, as was identified in the strategic planning update as well. We have the grant allotted amount for open space as we had last year. Just a reminder on grants. Grants are not money in our bank account, though I wish they were. Grants are placeholders so that if we do have the opportunity to pursue a grant fund, it holds its place in our budget and we have the ability to potentially provide some kind of matching funds. We have our short-term rentals. We are moving forward with doing a mass mailing campaign and adding more short-term rentals onto our list, which in fact is part of our fee structure. So we'll be making a concentrated effort on that this year as well. For our innovative and high-performing organization, we took 2 positions and reclassified them. One would be in our court, where we had a court clerk, who we've now reclassified to a deputy court clerk 2. The deputy court clerk has trained and done all of the requirements so that in the event that our court administrator wasn't able to be in place, our deputy court clerk could step up and be court administrator, which is a really big deal because court administrative services is not something you can just get somebody to step into. It's something that requires experience and it requires certification and training. In addition to that, we are reclassifying the planning clerk position to a planner 1 position. That will not be at an increase to the budget. It will just be a reclassification. And then lastly, we have infrastructure. Infrastructure will increase some professional fees, increases to professional fees in our engineering area, which our engineer will speak to you about. We have still money set aside, as we did this past year, for our town center. And then our capital improvement for pavement management remains in place as well. And we have additional funds for culvert repair. The culvert repair, the whitewash that we're beginning now, is funded, opportunity funded through the county. And that is at an 80-20 split, so that is actually considered a grant. So we will receive money back on that, but we do have to budget for the complete spend out. So those are what you'll see coming in the budget. And as the staff make their presentations and you see where perhaps there are gaps in what I have here in this table and potentially moving forward, what priorities you would like to see in the budget, we'll have that discussion. And we can have that discussion as the departments present. I'll leave that up to you to decide how you want to do that. So we'll move on to the department presentations. And I know you guys are tired of listening to me, but you're going to have to listen to me just a little bit more. And then we'll shake it up, okay? So we have a town organizational chart. I'm excited about this, okay? So you can see there's names on the chart. It tells you who's who. And if there's somebody in that chart you don't know yet, make sure that you get to know who they are. Pretty standard there. One of the things that I discussed with you was the community development department division was not a structured division. I've now made it a structured division. Stacy Bridge-Danzak is our director of community development. She's also our planning and zoning director and our zoning administrator. And then you can see how that moves down. The deputy clerk community development administration position, once the budget is approved, we'll reclassify that to the planner 1 position. And again, that's at no cost to the budget. We have our building official and our code enforcement as well as part of that team. And the staff were really excited about this because a lot of the things that they all do affect each other as a whole process. So that would be probably the biggest change you see in the table of organization. In addition to administration, in administration, I have taken human resources and risk management and benefits. Our office manager, Debbie, is now managing benefits for us, which is excellent because it does take time and energy to do that. And HR and risk I'll be managing, and you'll hear more about that in the budget. And then economic development is also a key factor for administration this year. So that's just the overall big picture look. So I won't spend a lot of time reading this slide to you, but this is the town administration. The town administrator is the chief administrative officer. We've recently been through all this because my appointment just occurred less than 6 weeks ago. So leadership and coordination, operations and personnel, financial management. One of the things that has changed as a result of town administration change is that I continue to be heavily involved with the financial piece of financial management. That was another change as well. Finance came over to town administration. It no longer falls under town clerk. And that human resources and risk management piece. So there are 2 full-time employees technically in this budget. That is myself and our office manager, Debbie, who you all know. Some of the accomplishments that town administration had this year are additional town center improvements, landscaping, sidewalk leveling. We just completed sidewalk leveling last month, as a matter of fact. That's a big risk management piece. We have to do that every year. Ceiling, lighting repairs, chairs, holiday decorations, all those pieces. As you know, the town administrator prior and our engineer and the mayor have worked very closely with MAG regarding the Pima Road and Cave Creek corridor study. We have worked to expand communications to improve engagement with our communities, such as our town hall meetings, open houses, and have incorporated an update to the strategic plan and incorporated that update into this budget. And then, of course, our former administrator heavily involved with this, with council members Amoroso, Mayor Crane, and Councilmember Johnson, the negotiation for the rural metro contract that begins next year. So those are some of the accomplishments. What does town administration want to achieve in 2027? Continuation of implementing your strategic initiatives in those key focus areas. This year, a very strong focus on economic development and how we are doing that here in our town. Managing the Transparency Portal project, which we talked at detail about in our strategic updates. And training our new town clerk and treasurer, who's currently interim, during on-the-job training, and helping her be successful in securing a permanent appointment. Managing our employee benefits, working with our external agencies, which I'm very excited about, having served on a number of them in my prior career, to be back with MAG and be back with the League. Then there's the human resources, which you've heard me speak about before. Our employee manual was last revised in 2015. It's overdue for an update. Put some money in the budget so that we could have a human resource expert actually help to develop that in accordance with rules and regulations of 2026. So that's at a limited cost as well. The other is I'll be working on formalizing performance planning for the town as well. So continuing to work closely with each of our departments on their deliverables and their specific goals, and providing those updates as we go throughout the year. And then the financial upgrade that we're still working on. I know a number of you have heard me speak about potentially hiring a budget and finance director going forward. I think it's in our best interest, before we invest in that, to hire a contractor to do a workflow study of how we currently are handling our financial processes. There's no question we're handling them rightly, but efficiency and value added is what we're looking for. Jim Keene has been with us over 25 years and does an outstanding job. The problem is Jim does too many jobs, and he does things automatically because he's just always done them. Those things are really the things that fall through the cracks if Jim isn't here anymore with us, and he decides to go out and travel the world or have some fun, right? So I really need to figure out how we want our finance and accounting piece to look in years going forward. So I've budgeted a little bit of money to bring in somebody to do an accurate workflow process, to kind of pick Jim's brain, get us the information we need to figure that out. Then, of course, continue to manage those public safety contracts, building those relationships with Rural Metro and MCSO. Already having a good time doing that. We were out at the firehouse the other day, and Chief Mooney out there said, hey, we never get to see you guys. I said, well, great, we're coming there for our next staff luncheon. So trying to build that relationship between all of us. Rural Metro is a part of our team. And then lastly, adopting a risk management strategy that includes employee training. I believe that one of the things that we can do to reduce risk here in our town is by making sure that our employees are adequately and even exceeding the training that is required by state mandates. So we'll be working on those things. Now, the town clerk treasurer's office and our finance department, I'm going to cover those real quickly because I was the town clerk last year and I was the manager of finance last year. So as you can see, the clerk functions are there. The clerk and treasury functions, the job description, one of the things we'll be working on this year is updating job descriptions. Because I was the town clerk and treasurer, I updated that description first. So Samantha has a job description that accurately reflects what a town clerk and a treasurer should be doing. In that position, you also serve as the treasurer and secretary for the Carefree Water Company and the Utilities Community Facilities District, so Samantha will be training on that as well. Really looking forward to this coming year, and Samantha is really eager to learn some of these things that fall more into that treasury and financial management. So we have one full-time employee in that position, and currently that is Samantha Giselle. The accomplishments in the town clerk's office responded over to 80 public records last year, and I think this is a key factor, resulting in producing about 6,000 documents. That's a lot of paper, a lot of records. So that is really why we're at this point where we have to get this records management system up to date, and that's one of the goals here. Ordinances have been updated, they're now current. As you know, the water company and the UCFD, I ended up managing the front office for about 2 months there, so they're in a pretty good position financially right now. We had that new fee structure, we did some liquor license training. We've got a student intern in the middle of the project for the records management piece, which we talked about at our strategic planning update. We had a great League of Arizona conference last year, very organized, and we are now currently in the election cycle, which Samantha has been the lead on the election cycle since December, even prior to this interim appointment. We got a renewed 5-year contract with Raggett, so we didn't get kicked off that board. I was happy about that. It was all good. And then assisting in the transition of work for the retiring town administrator, which I've spent probably the last 8 weeks doing. So what's going to happen with the town clerk and treasurer? We're going to work on that records management system as we've discussed, that transparency portal, complete that on-the-job training. The other 2 big projects are we need to have a very strict and firm retention schedule. That goes hand in hand with the records management system, and that will include an email retention schedule as well. Those are our goals for this year. And assisting the council with researching a council policy manual as we have established in the strategic plan updates. In finance and accounting, here are the descriptions for that. I'd like to point out that one person does all these things. We have the finance and accounting piece, we have the information technology piece. We contract with a company to do our actual hardware, software, and kind of be our systems manager, but internally, we still need someone to assist when somebody's mouse doesn't turn on, which happens to me at least once a week. Jim's the go-to guy. We have the facilities management as well. One of the things that ultimately happens when you know where the money is, which Jim does, he ends up managing the contracts and the budgets and the vendor services for all our town facilities. And that's operational continuity, and most recently we've had to do some facilities things for security as well. So what's going to happen in finance this year? Let's talk about what actually happened in finance this year. The financial software and that system is moving forward. It's a lot of work. You're practically using all the data from the past 20 years in Carefree and rolling that up to put into a new system. We completed the audit with Clifton Larson Allen, our new auditor, brand new. Fire station, there were a number of items that needed fixing, purchasing, or upgrading. Public Works, number of things that needed purchasing, upgrading, replacement. Probably the most lucrative one was the public auction of the Peterbilt dump truck, which we used the funds from that to purchase some of our wood chipper. Information technology, we're constantly needing new pieces of equipment, bigger screens for planning and zoning and building, and so that we can use that wonderful new system we have, SmartGov. Going forward this year, we're going to finish that financial upgrade. We're going to move forward with getting vendors actually in the system so that we will stop writing manual checks. And we're going to document, like I said, using an outside contractor. I'm going to have somebody come in to document all these workflows and to put this into a process so that we have it written down for us. Facilities, everything, again, these are all things that Jim does just automatically. This year, he's going to document which systems get annual checkups at all our buildings, so we have that going forward, and our vendors as well. And then information technology, we're just going to keep moving forward. We're required to have cyber training exercises. Has anyone received that in their inbox? Yeah, so we are required by law to do those. That's, part of it. So please do those as they come up. And now you don't have to listen to me anymore. Do you guys have any questions on all of that information?
Yeah, can we go back 2 slides, please? In this fiscal year, we made quite an investment in the fire station. So do we anticipate more of that, or is that kind of status quo in the next fiscal year?
It is status quo in the next fiscal year because of some of the large purchases that we made this year, including that Lucas chest compression. That was a pretty hefty piece of equipment to purchase, as well as there's an ongoing maintenance fee and a service fee attached to that. So it should mostly just be regular fixes. We don't have any capital investments for this year. I anticipate that we will for next year's budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question, or just maybe a comment about on the financing side. It seems that if we're gonna add an extra person, that area might be an area we should look at. I just don't see a lot of redundancy and backup and bench strength there. And it seems like you're doing an awful lot of training, and really, you and Jim are taking all this on. And if Jim's gonna go sail the high seas, I think we might wanna think about that sooner than later, because it seems a very big portion of what you've discussed. So that's my only comment.
Thank you very much for that comment, and the rest of the council can think about how we'd like to proceed with that. If we'd like to put some money in the budget, perhaps starting after January 1, for perhaps having Jim on at the same time as having someone else on for transition. But by no means do I want to say that Jim has not said I'm leaving, right? But you still have to anticipate when only one person knows how to do everything, and then I'm like a quarter of a person, right? We have to have something in place.
It just looking at this, it seems apparent.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on those departments? All right. Let's have Madison Garrett come up to talk to you about communications and what's been happening there. By the way, Jim is leaving to work on those numbers for our city sales tax revenue.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I am the communications manager, and I manage the communications department, which takes over quite a bit. I have been here almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in October, so I'm really proud of that. I basically handle everything that goes out from the town, whether it's social media, emails, website. I also handle internal communications. External, I work with businesses, regional stakeholders, community members. I even work with Bo from Cave Creek as well from time to time. I implement a digital first approach, which means a lot of stuff is available digitally, but it is also available, in person with posting and flyers in the post office or at the town hall. I focus on clear, transparent, and accessible communication. So everything is put out mainly through emails, but it is always also posted on our website. So if somebody's not signed up, they can always still find that information. I manage digital platforms, like I said, social media, our website. I'm also, I'd say, the second part of my job. My second job is the events management. I manage the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion and all the programming there, whether it comes to the weekly programs like yoga, the farmers market, and then all of our events as well that go through there. I handle the rental process. I collaborate with local businesses to also put on events there as well. I coordinate with all the departments, elected officials, you guys, and stakeholders on town initiatives. Some things I worked on this last year, and I'll get into this more, were the Future of Town Hall site. The budget book is also something I've been working on with Kristen, and I just work on basically the marketing and the government. That's also the other part of my job, is the marketing of the town. When I talk about external stakeholders, I don't just talk about our residents, but I also talk about visitors that come up to town as well. When we look at accomplishments, a lot of my accomplishments, I'd say, are the same every year. I maintain the same thing when it comes to social media. Emails, nothing necessarily gets crazy different, but I made sure that that's consistent even when I take a leave. I plan and execute our major community events, which consists of about 12 at this time. We added on 3 new events this last year. That's one of my accomplishments. Not necessarily our own events, but some that we've done with community partners, like the YMCA. We have brought their annual trunk or treat event up to town center, which I think has been a benefit for all of us, not only them to increase their foot space, but I think it also increases us because it takes that audience and brings them up to town, and then it benefits our businesses as well. I've implemented the venue management software, Planning Pod. I've started getting into that. I plan on really formalizing it and utilizing it for every single event in this next fiscal year. I produce our monthly, weekly newsletters covering events, news, updates, but also for all of the projects that we do. I consistently update our website and the user experience. Ensure it's always updated. Usually when somebody tells me to go and update a document, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to update the entire page and make sure it's all good. And then I also run our Visit Carefree site, which I've added the digital town map on there, and the Wild Joy video that I presented on is also up and linked on there so people can watch that. I've continued with our visitor center renovations to improve functionality and for guest experience and for event utilization. I've also developed some initial Carefree Creations design, which is something I've talked about, but I think it's just it's a way to increase the Carefree brand, which will also be a big focus in this next fiscal year. And that's been, it's had a strong positive community response. They're those little stickers that you guys have seen floating around with the sundial and the Roadrunner. And then I've also just continued to strengthen partnerships with our local businesses and to boost our visibility in tourism. Something else that I forgot to add on, but it's on these slides, is I worked with Bo and Foothill with the town of Cave Creek and Christine with the Foothills Caring Corps, and we got the Dementia Friendly America distinction, which is, it's now Dementia Friendly America Carefree Cave Creek is the official name. And so we've all worked together to create that, and now we're also working with businesses to help Foothills Caring Corps get in connection with them so they can do trainings with them, and then hopefully spread the word more and spread that to our visitors as well and our residents. I've also assisted with projects and will continue to with these ordinance update, creating a web page, sending out email blasts. I just sent out an email blast today about the upcoming community workshop. And then same thing with the future of town hall site. I was a big piece with that as well. And then next fiscal year.
Madison, I just
Yeah.
want to add in 2 things so the council knows this.
Mhm.
One is we recently purchased that software, Recite Me, which you've heard us talk about before.
Yes.
That ADA compliance piece was very important because that actually went into effect of April of 2026.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many emails I've seen from my colleagues floating around that still haven't been able to figure out how to do compliance. So we were ahead of the game on that, and I think that should be recognized, that Madison was thoughtful in making sure that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also with the Dementia Friendly American distinction. I think we just recently heard about that in the past 4 months from the Foothills Caring Corps, and that we moved forward so quickly on that is a real benefit to our town. It's a real, I don't want to say trend because that's not a fair assessment of it, but it's a very important factor in being recognized for doing good things. So thank you, Madison, for doing those.
And then this is my cute little graphic about social media. This is from July to March because this needs to be updated. But I'll put together the entire communications audit in July, and that'll show the entire fiscal year's results. But we actually reached 8,000 followers on Facebook after some time, and 3,000 on Instagram, which has been a long time coming. I've been working on that since I started here. And then everything's been pretty much up and up on all of our social media platforms, even our YouTube. We've gained subscribers, gained views, and gained impressions. Our emails, we've gained 552 contacts within the last fiscal year. It'll increase even more. Our open rate is 44%, which is actually on the higher end of the average open rate for government emails, which is usually 28 to 48. So we're doing good. Our residents are engaged in opening our communications. Our top lists are events, Carefree Connection, which is our monthly newsletter, and our Carefree Next Week, which usually is a breakdown of what's going to come up in the next week. And our events, it always remains really popular. I think it's because not only our residents, but also our visitors sign up for that as well. Email content is also, like I said, mentioned earlier, always available on the website for those who don't want to be pushed, emails pushed out to them. And then there's a cute little breakdown of all the town events, which is our Carefree Garden seminars, our Earth Day celebration, which we just had, our Memorial Day tribute, our Carefree Under the Stars, which was a new one that we worked with Diane Roth on, and Focus Astronomy. And then Carefree YMCA Trunk or Treat, Glass Pumpkin Patch, which Greg Toom came to us, and we worked with him to create a really cool event that'll be coming back again this fall. Our Veterans Day celebration, which is always a hit, thanks to Mayor, as well for putting the program together. Our Sanderson Linker Saturdays, which we continuously hear a lot of praise for. People love hearing the music on Saturdays. Our Hanukkah and Carefree event, and our Carefree Lights Up as well.
Just going back to that last slide. So if we look at the numbers reached on social media, do you have a feel for like how much those numbers grew year over year?
Yeah, they grew quite a bit. I don't have the percentages off the top of my head, but I would say they're a lot higher than last year's increases. I would say, I can't remember what month I posted it, but I'm sure you've all seen the bobcat with the rattlesnake photo that we posted. That actually boosted us quite a bit. So thank you to Travis, our public supervisor, for sending that photo to me. But that actually, we went mini viral, I would say, but that reached quite a few. And I'd say that almost contributes to half of those views from that one post.
You know, Mayor makes a good point there. It would be nice to show what you did the year before, to show an increase, decrease, and the effectiveness. It would be nice just to have a little comparative.
Absolutely. I did it my first year. After my first year here, it was a communications audit, which showed the increases from this year compared to last year, and I plan to do that again this year. I kind of dropped the ball last fiscal year at the end there. I was a little busy. And then, so my goals, they do stay somewhat the same from every year. I mean, I continuously want to increase our communications, increase the effectiveness, increase our community engagement. I plan to always collaborate with our Carefree businesses to increase our visibility. I want to, in the next fiscal year, in our strategic plan, I'm planning to research some best practices for government marketing strategies. You know, what's the best way government can reach their residents? I also plan to actually launch Carefree Creations with more designs now that I have some more time on my hands. And so we'll continue to increase that. That'll be a nice little, not a huge flow of revenue, but hopefully something that'll boost funds for visitor center or events. I'm looking more at text communications. I want to kind of lump that in with our researching best practices for government marketing. I want to see if that's something residents actually want. I mean, some of them may be like, I don't want you texting me, keep it to my email. So I plan on looking more into that.
Yes, how we determine if it's something they actually want.
I'll do some more research and kind of see what other communities have done and see if that's been well received, or if residents have been like, no, we don't really like it, or it's not even utilized. Let's say residents don't know about it and they don't sign up for it in other municipalities, then maybe it's not worth investing in for us. I also plan to improve and consolidate the centralized online portal for town documents. If you go to our website and you click in the right top-hand corner, you can go and see all the documents on our webpage. It is a mess, and that's unfortunate from our last website. It's been all over the place, but I've been slowly working on it, and I plan to finish that hopefully by the end of July, actually. And I will also be completing visitor center renovations. I plan to come back to you in July, because that's one of my big budget requests or asks for the proposed budget, is investing some good money in there to do the automatic door system, which was a lot more costly than originally anticipated, doing a mural to really capitalize on the arts identity that Carefree has, and doing something in there, as we can't necessarily do anything with buildings, but we can do something with the assets we own. And then I plan to simplify and streamline event management with the new software, like I mentioned, Planning Pod. I want to use that for every single event. It will have contracts will be signed every time we rent it to somebody. There will be invoices sent. There will be reminders sent on invoices. It will be a lot more automated and not necessarily me emailing, being like, hey, remember you owe this, or hey, what tables and chairs do you need for this event? But we're hoping to really simplify that process. And then also in the strategic plan, I'm researching and implementing the best practices to strengthen community engagement. This is a little bit different than the government marketing strategies, but I want to look at what other communities are doing to engage their residents and really capitalize on the feedback that they can give us for projects.
Have you thought of
asking the Sonoran Art League to do a contest to do the painting, the mural.
I've thought
So
about
It wouldn't
that.
cost us anything, it would help them.
Mm-hmm.
So have them, and we could advertise it and bring interest. Also, what is your cost on your merchandise? How much money are you spending for the merchandise, and what's your markup going to be?
I don't have exact markups on that, and I can come back to you with all those numbers before anything's even done. But I plan on doing more of a drop shipping element where it's not necessarily, we're not keeping inventory, we're not creating anything, but we create the designs. It's on a website for people to go purchase. We don't have to manage any of that. We'll just make a profit off of it. And that's not necessarily we're buying all this inventory and then having to try and sell it, but it'll be sold. It'll be bought and
Usually
sold
have
at the same
to
time.
commit to a base amount, like 100 pieces, or
Yeah,
So-
I don't have exact numbers on that, but I think we'll start small and build up from there and kind of see what is well received and what people actually
are
want.
you thinking of $1,000, $2,000?
Maybe 1,000 we'll start. I mean, I don't have those exact numbers, and then I guess it'll depend on what we're selling, like arena sell T-shirts, mugs, things like that. We'll look at those margins when we get there.
But there are a
And-
lot of constraints on minimums. So whoever you're buying them from, you're going to have to commit to a minimum number of
Yeah,
pieces.
I plan on looking into working with the Ink Spot because they are they're a business over in the Mariachi Plaza. So I want to talk more with them about what we could do, and we can also, I bet you those minimums will probably be a lot more flexible than if we did something with an outsider. Any other questions? All right,
Okay, great.
I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Economic Development. Steve Prokopek, our Economic Development Director.
Mayor, Council, I will be more brief than that. So, just kidding. Thanks, Madison, and thank you all. And I wanted to kind of focus on, as economic development, what we do, and one of them is looking at generating the revenue. So as we start getting into the budget, that's how we have to bring revenue in. And at the other side of it is economic development isn't just about bringing in revenue and sales tax revenue, but it's also about creating an experience. And so those are the two things that we try to focus in on. And one of the questions that came up is how does revenue kind of look? And I know Kristen's going to get into that. But when you start looking at economic development and what we're trying to focus on, it's really the recurring revenue versus one-time revenue. And the recurring revenue comes in really kind of various different forms. And it's not even focused on all the recurring revenue because we don't really control things like online sales, which is one of our revenue sources for sales tax. So what we look at is the built environment. And one of the things in the past that we looked at was putting together what we called the build-out analysis. And that build-out analysis looks at how we look at and project what those revenues can look like over time based on how we project that the community could build out for retail. So those are the things that we just, from an economic development perspective, we try to update that quarterly and try to provide that information. What I want to do is just kind of briefly go through what we've done over the last year and kind of where we're focused on going in this next year. And one of the things I think I'm actually really proud of this because it's the comprehensive sign plan. And I think this is when we start talking about what government means and what we're trying to accomplish. This is something that started back in like 2015 with the Village Center Master Plan. This was the community coming together, putting a plan together with implementation steps. And one of those implementation steps was looking at the signage. And I know Councilmember Croyer was very instrumental in making sure that this got implemented because it's very important for people to know where the town center is and be able to move around. And it was really looking at the wayfinding as well as identification, but also looking and creating something that is a higher quality for the town center as well. And it went from there. Stacy worked on it. She brought the contractor in, Kimberly Horn, who started putting that plan together. Economic development got involved. A lot of stakeholders got involved. The community was involved at various different levels, and I know Councilmember Skirty was involved with that as well, coming in and looking at the finances and how that thing got put together and looking at the final phasing. And then CJ came along and reluctantly was, I think, handed the project to go ahead and do the implementation, but he did a great job. And you can see now that the first ones are being installed, and they look fantastic. I mean, I think that the expectation I had has been blown a little bit, and I'm very happy to see how from 2015 to 2026, this finally is happening. Sometimes you hope these things happen faster, but it does show how the process does work, and we try to do the right thing all the way across from when it was started and to when it was finished. So thank you to everybody who was involved with that. Some of the other things we did this last year is we started the facade program. We've had interest in it, though we haven't had any projects funded, and we're continuing to have interest. My guess is we'll probably see projects start to come in for this last quarter of this fiscal year, so those projects can happen over the summertime. And so we are talking to several property owners at this time. We kicked off the town hall revitalization or redevelopment analysis, and we've kind of broken that down into smaller chunks. The first chunk was really looking at in the due diligence process of, what would people like to see on the town hall site, and then the kind of came through where restaurant was the number one thing that people were focused on, restaurant retail. And the second chunk now is looking at how that revenue would play out. And again, looking at what we're trying to accomplish is this recurring revenue component. And I say recurring revenue, construction sales tax, again, is something that is part of what our revenue is. But what we're looking at on here is this idea of recurring revenue that can be generated from any particular site within the town that helps us pay for the things that are recurring costs, like public safety and everything else. The big project, the Carefree Quarter, I know it's something that's been on everybody's mind, and it's one of the things that we're working on. And the key for economic development through this whole process is, yes, we want to get this thing done as quickly as possible because we need to get to that recurring revenue. And it's something, when you look at our projection, it's a huge chunk. I mean, it could increase our revenues by 20%. At the same time, we don't want to screw it up either, right? We get one shot on one site. And these things are so critical to the town. And so sometimes being a little bit patient to get the best project is something that we look towards to. And so we've been working very closely with the property owner and the developers involved in that. And as I just provided a presentation on it, the developer that we had been working with is phasing out. We're phasing in potentially a new developer, and we'll be talking about that at a later date. But it's something that's very important, and I think the direction that this is headed is the proper direction, to do something that was consistent with what was approved with the original zoning case. And so we'll keep continuing to work towards that. We completed the position analysis, and the position analysis was an extremely important piece. And I know it's more important probably to me, it seems like, than a lot of people. But it's one of those things that brings us together, and we can generate consensus on what we want. And when you get consensus, then it provides focus. And when we have focus, we can definitely now go after the types of things and the types of businesses and the types of investment that we really would like to see in the town. And as we look, the other piece of that is in looking at implementing a serious promotional plan. And it's not to say that we haven't gone out and tried to promote the community, and I've worked closely with Madison and others to be able to accomplish that. It's really just being more focused on the types of things we want to see, for instance, in the A space or in the old CVS space. And positive things are happening on those sites. And hopefully we'll be bringing some more of that information forward to you in the coming weeks. But that's what we're really trying to focus in on. And it's tough because it's easy to fill space. Well, it's hard to fill space. It's harder to fill space with the types of things that you want. And especially if we're really driven by sales tax, you've eliminated a lot of commercial that can go in these particular spaces. And so, again, sometimes it's tough to be patient, but sometimes you need to be patient to be picky. And we want to make sure that we're getting the right things in our community. One of the things that we continue to do is just work actively with developers, and there's been a significant increase in developer interest in the town center and in the community in general. And a lot of it has to be doing with the decisions that this council has made in the past. It's doing things like the facade program, the circulation planning, the signage, all that stuff really starts to stack together. And so I know some of you have talked to some of these interested investors as well, and they'll tell you the same thing. When the community shows an interest in itself, when it shows that it's willing to put forth the effort to make something different or to expand what it wants to do or see or has a vision but is showing that it's going towards that vision, it's a lot easier for those investors to buy into it as well and come with a shared vision and look to take that money that they have and invest it. Because when we do these things, we minimize the risk for investment. And so this last year, we've done a lot of things that have been very positive, and we're seeing a lot more investment come in from new investment. And Carefree Plaza is kind of an interesting example of that, where you saw a really qualified investor, developer come in, buy a building, and they're looking to reposition that as a retail building. And so, and unfortunately, you know, we were able to take one of the tenants out of there and move them to another space that's going to be productive for the town as well. And so those are the things that we're continuing to work on. And then the policies and procedures, and this is a very touchy one. And economic development was assigned this because, and I believe it was because the spaces that we were focusing on when we first started having this conversation, and I know Councilmember Johnson, this is something you brought up with the meadery and some other spaces that were just completely underutilized. And we're kind of embarrassing. You see a sign on the note on the door, and I think that's exactly what you said, you know, coming soon, and it's been 2 years. And so working with Stacy and Ruben and a lot of other folks within the community, and I mean, the mayor got involved. I mean, it was a lot within the staff to be able to try to put together something productive in an area that is extremely touchy, because you start looking at enforcement, the first thing you step out with is you're trying to figure out a way to not be punitive. You want to find ways to proactively and productively work with properties and businesses and property owners. And I think there was a lot of success that came out of that. And it's easy to focus on some of the negative things, but the positive one is the meadery, where now you have shared living and a great outcome. You know, shared living is expanding within the building, and now you have retail in a space that wasn't generating retail because we took the time to care about that. Next to venues, something that was completely a disaster. I think a lot of people, was one of the most complained about spaces in town, has turned into something that's productive now and has retail. And so those are the things when we start looking at accomplishments, you know, and I know Kristen has made this a very big thing for economic development. We're all engaged and we're all involved in this. And all the way from the how we do the budgeting to the decisions that we make. And this stuff isn't easy. It's very difficult. And so I commend everybody who's been involved in these things, but we're going to continue to make sure that we involve and engage everybody, and that everything we do is going to be transparent, as it always is, and try to bring the best decisions to the council. For this next year, again, Carefree Quarter is going to be the top thing that we're going to be focused on. The goal is really try to get this project under construction by Q2 of next year. Talking with the developer and the property owners, that's something that they're targeting, is where they want to start the construction. And so that'd be both the off-site and on-site construction. Again, we're going to work with property owners, and one of the things out of the positioning analysis was really getting the property owners to focus on a business improvement district. And property owners have stepped up and want to be engaged in this conversation. This is one of the things where we're going to, kind of a chicken and egg, where we're going to have to work with the property owners, but this has to be an initiative that is run by these property owners. And we will participate and provide resources, but we'll continue to work to bring that forward, to have those conversations. And that's really to focus on pedestrian amenities within the town center, shade structures, some of the things that we've talked about, as well as the other thing we need to do is look at parking. And then, so maybe there's a way that we can work with the private sector to help promote and bring more parking to the town. So that's one of the things I'll be focused on as well. Then we'll continue to implement the facade program and for the redevelopment area. Evaluate the circulation plan. It's one of the things, it's pretty much in its final phase right now, and we'll probably be bringing something fairly soon within the next month or two. As we, you know, it's very complicated, a lot of moving parts, and we just want to make sure that whatever gets brought forward is the right thing for us to bring forward. And then implement the Invest Carefree promotional and outreach program. And again, this kind of comes down to is really the formalization of a promotional strategy, and I'll work closely with Madison on that. And that really is, and we start looking at bringing in what we call a business attraction to the town. This is the investment piece. There's three different pieces to that. There's the investment piece to new investment coming in. There's tenants coming in and making investments to bring businesses here, or businesses coming in. And then there's the visitors who come in. And so those are the three areas that we'll be focused on. And one of the things that it'll be is we'll really drill down and make sure that these things are data-driven, and that there's a quantitative factor that comes along with all that. And as we start vetting what this promotional plan is, we'll put all those quantitative factors in there. So, for instance, how many businesses are we reaching out to, the types of businesses that we're reaching out to, the types of investors, and the brokers that we're reaching out to, and then really start putting numbers to all of those things. And then we will continue with the town hall site evaluation. And then, again, just facilitate ongoing revitalization investment within the town. And so we'll just continue working with those investors that are engaged and try to bring those projects that and the visions they have to the table. Any questions?
Yeah, Steve, thanks. You said at the end of your presentation about quantitative information. I think that's what I really would love to see is kind of a swath, a strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. And we could list places you think we may be in danger of losing, places that we have opportunities, but some more specifics, you know, kind of give us a big picture, since 65% of our revenue is from this. So you know how much I'm involved in that. I want to be
Yep.
involved. So I'd love to see some sort of a SWOT analysis with some specifics.
Yeah, Councilman Johnson, Mayor, that's something we'll definitely bring to you.
Thanks.
Also on redoing the code,
Mhm.
I'd like to see less draconian actions against merchants in town, because we did not come out looking so hot. And there was really no reason for the really draconian threatening people with jail. Not good. So I think I talked to Kristen that when we issue a building permit, with the you say before you get your permit, here are our sign regulations. You need a permit for a temporary sign. This is what you need for your permanent sign. And, you know, here are the 5 things you have to complete before we issue your business license to you. And I think that would eliminate a lot of the confusion that happens, because a lot of people opening small businesses are first timers. You know, it's not like they're part of a chain that they have a corporate office that's going to walk them through everything. They're people that have a great idea and want to open something. So they need us to hold their hand with very clear, you know, rules and regulations that they need to do to
Yeah.
avoid confusion.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Roth, totally agree with you. I mean, I think it's one of the things, the more education we can give a business ahead of time, the better. And we can avoid all of those things. And so
Is that really what you do?
it's not what I do, but, you know, like I said,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know, but, so you don't actually issue licenses?
yeah, so
So,
Mayor, Councilmember Amoroso, the way I look at it is again, it's all of us need to start working together and to identify these things. And so, you know, do I talk on the front lines to a lot of businesses? Yes, and try to understand where those deficiencies are and try to bring that back. But at the end of the day, it's going to be sitting down with community development and also with with communications and how we put that communication together. And so a lot of communities do have best practices about how they do educate businesses. And in a lot of cases, it is larger businesses who already know this stuff. They have teams of people who do these things. Or in a case where you have a Chipotle, their people know that there's a process. And in some cases, is we don't have that. Is economic development going to take the lead on that? Probably not at this point. But I think community development probably, and with working with them, we can all figure it out.
well, now we have, since we have an online permitting process, that maybe when something new comes in, we have a packet that we send to them or something, because it's not gonna go to a person anymore, it's gonna go online. So,
And interestingly, this goes back to that Invest Carefree promotional and outreach program piece. There's a lot of facets to that, and one of them is providing this kind of material, and how do we make sure it gets into the hands of the people that are in the process. So it's a much broader view, and one part of it is how do we market ourselves better in the sense that people understand what they need to do once they get here. So going back to Councilmember Roth's example of small business owners who would like to operate in a town such as ours, having them have something, you know, whether that be online through the actual SmartGov process, or having that be available as that promotional and outreach package would be helpful. So it'll be all comprehensive with myself, Steve, Stacy, Ruben, and even Rob, our building official, involved, because those are all the rules of our codes, right? So the more of us that give input, I don't want to create a handbook, but I want to create just an opportunity for people to figure out where to get the resources. We have a lot of it already on the website already. And Madison, as we've said earlier, is working on a website update. So that would be like, one of the things that I envision is we have a business center on our website, where that's where all this material is, where this links everything together, so that, you know, we don't hand people the code and say, read the code to get the answer.
So is there a checklist on our website process where Stacy's, yeah, that it says what they have to do so they can see when they electronically put in for a license, they then see the next steps or something like that?
Yeah, there's definitely materials there. There's, you know, that's the issue is when you're dealing with, like, I think Diane said, when you're dealing with, Councilmember Ross said, you're dealing with larger entities, they have a whole process of their own that they build into our process. When you're dealing with someone who just wants to start up their own business, it's a little more complicated for them. So it's just those little pieces of the puzzle that will make it simpler. But overall, I think that really falls under this Invest Carefree Promotional Outreach Program, which all of us will be involved in, because Steve mentioned this. Each of us, it's my thought and it's my goal. Everyone who is here and working for the town of Carefree is ultimately responsible for our economic development. All of us are out there, we're walking around, we're seeing people, we're smiling at people, we're saying hi to people. We are being recognized as being town employees. And part of that is, you know, encouraging people to come here and participate and be actively involved. Doesn't mean that they'll be in the day-to-day trenches of economic development, but to kind of foster a culture where we all understand that ultimately we are responsible for the future of our town.
But I also want to make it clear that as we went through the process, and I know Stacy took on a lot in the bulk of trying to manage this, because it wasn't just the commercial side, there was the residential side when it came to code enforcement. And she went, and I don't want to speak too much for her, but she went through a lot of care to make sure that she researched what she was doing. She worked very closely with, you know, a lot of various different folks, made sure that investigations were done, made sure that people had ample opportunity, letters were sent. I know the mayor went out and talked to some folks. I went to talk to folks. And I'll give you a great example. I went and talked to, it's at 37417 Tom Darlington, where the We Believe folks are. We had that conversation, and we had issues there where they were storing stuff, and they had somebody living on the bottom floor in a commercial space. And it was just through cooperative conversations, they ended up re-tenanting the bottom floor and fixing up the entire building, you know, or in repainting and cleaning it up. So I don't want to say that it was, I think there's a lot of positives that came out of that. And at the end of the day, people are in compliance, and that's what it's about. And unfortunately, and nobody hopes that it ever gets to where we have to utilize the enforcement stick. Nobody wants to do that. And I just want to make it clear, nobody took any joy in doing that. And if there's ways that we can start looking at what those penalties are or how that penalty process works, again, that's not economic development. I'm just sharing you my
Correct.
Experience with it.
Right.
And I don't want to get too far into it,
Yeah,
but
so let's leave code compliance where code compliance lies,
Yeah.
and we'll close out economic development.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Council, Steve, did you have any other questions for Steve before he left the podium, Council? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Steve. Next, we're going to talk about municipal court. Andy Mercer is here. Do you all know Andy?
No, this is my first time introducing.
All right.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, council members. My name is Andy Mercer, and I am the court administrator at the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court. Judge Paris Condola sends her regards as she could not join us today. Our department has had a very busy year, as you all know. The responsibilities of the court include, but are not limited to, the administering and processing of criminal and civil cases for the town of Carefree and the town of Cave Creek, responding to public inquiries, maintaining accurate court records, distributing fines and fees in accordance with statutory requirements. Accomplishments of the court for fiscal year 2025-26, continued streamlining of court services to provide more efficient customer service. For example, we have revised numerous forms to reflect the latest information and requirements. We have also ensured signage in the court lobby complies with AOC requirements, helping customers navigate through a complicated and intimidating process, whether it be for a protective order, court help information, or those who speak limited English. This year, we obtained a civil prosecution agreement with town prosecutor for ARS 28-2322. We obtained a backup public defender contract with local attorney John Rood. For this amount of time, we've only been relying on one public defender, so it's nice to have the cushion of a second. Review of bench warrant files by prosecution and court. Reviewed and changed security protocols to conform with AOC requirements and ensure safety of customers and court staff. The deputy court clerk and I also received CPR certification, which includes the use of a defibrillator. I can never say that word. I was trying to look it up to. Defibrillator. There's an R in there. Participation of the court in Stand Down for Veterans annual event in Phoenix and in the Stand Up for Veterans annual event in Glendale. Presentation to business class. Presentation to business class on careers in the law at Paradise Valley Community College. The court actually requested to undergo and completed the criminal history record review audit for the Arizona Department of Public Safety. AZDPS is going paperless, and this is to ensure the safety of the public. This audit applies to courts, prosecution agencies, and law enforcement. Changes in court rules, limited jurisdiction judges association, 2025 legislation and rules update. That was Judge Perez Gondola. Deputy court clerk and I are now certified on Arizona Criminal Justice Information Systems, network terminal as operator F, Arizona Disposition Reporting Systems, and Security and Privacy, which certifies us to go directly into the Department of Public Safety portal and disposition cases and/or retrieve proof of fingerprinting compliance. Let's see. This year's budget request aligns with the strategic plan for fiscal year 27. The court has requested the following: a $5,000 increase to the public defender contract fund due to a rise of in-custody cases. We've already surpassed the budget for this past fiscal year. The closing of the part-time position and the reclassification of Deputy Court Clerk 1 to Deputy Court Clerk 2 due to advanced training and certification. She is now able to run as backup court administrator in my absence as well. This is another reason it's important to reclassify. So the goals for fiscal year 2027, identification of security concerns to improve court and customer safety. There's a quarterly security meeting held with all stakeholders, Sergeant Hagan from MCSO, Marshal Stein, the bailiff, and court staff to address any security concerns. Identification of changes to court website to provide more efficient customer service, which we are currently in the process of addressing multiple forms to make it easier for the public to navigate through, these complicated processes that the court provides. Identify material relevant educational opportunities to enhance, improve staff knowledge and performance of duties. The court is currently enrolled in the Arizona Supervisor Program to enhance the court's efficiency. I have recently become a member of the Arizona Courts Association, which is a nonprofit professional organization with members from all courts in the state, which promotes professionalism in court personnel, increases awareness about court operations, and to foster cooperation to understand and exchange of information between court personnel. Next year, the court clerk will also become a member so she can participate in the 2027 ACA Spring Conference. Another goal, evaluate internal court administrative orders and policies for update and revision as needed, and then the continued streamlining of court processes to provide more efficient customer service. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
What percentage is criminal and what percentage is civil?
So the majority of our cases are civil.
Right, what percentage?
I don't have that information off the top of my head. I can get that answer for you and provide it to Kristen for her to report it back to you.
And what percentage of the cases are Carefree as opposed to Cave Creek?
So if you want, I mean, again, I can provide that information to you if you wanted to put in a request for that information.
Is that in the monthly report that we get?
It is in the monthly report, yes.
It is.
Yes, so
Okay,
it's
thank you.
provided every month.
That's the monthly report that I sent to you from the court.
Yeah, we get, but I was looking for the year number.
Okay.
Which would
So
give
you'd
us
like a
percentage.
You'd like a cumulative. total.
Cumulative, and the monthly report doesn't break it down
Okay.
percentage-wise.
Okay.
We
And
have-
how many in custody do you have on a? Because
So-
you said the cost went up on,
This year, it seemed to be quite a rise on the in custody.
how long are they in custody on average? 1 night, 2 nights?
So again, to just verify that I have the correct information, I'm going to circle back to you on that one.
Okay.
Because it can range, depends on their charges in the other courts that they're in.
But I assume it's not, they're transferred out, that you don't have for a long stay facility.
No,
Generally, the stay is for the 24-hour hold.
yes.
And then
That's
they're
what I-
adjudicated and transferred to another court or released.
Okay.
So the majority of the time, we're not housing anyone past a 48-hour mark.
So just the percentage that's in custody
Right.
on the year, comparative.
Are you asking, sorry, can you rephrase that?
How many in custody
Mm-hmm.
do you have on an annualized basis? And is it going up? What was it
I would
last year?
say-
Because you said that was an increase.
It's based on the warrants that are in the court. So, you know, we can have warrants that go all the way back from the 1990s, and someone could get picked up in Pima County, and then that becomes a case. So it's really hard to gauge. It changes every year, obviously. So I would have to find that exact number to get it to you. But I do know that we have bypassed what we budgeted for the public defender contract.
Yeah, that's
Right, so we're definitely ahead of it.
not a good thing.
And it's getting adjudicated though, so that's good. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Excellent presentation. We'll see you again next year.
Thank you
Okay?
very much.
Okay. All right. And next we have CJ DiMaggio, our town engineer.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. It's been a busy year, and I will get into that. And it's going to get even busier, and that's both good and bad. It presents us with a lot of things to brag about and a lot of challenges going forward. What do we do in engineering? Myself and occasionally retaining consultants who are specialists in specialty branches of engineering. We do a few things. We do 4 things, really. We do 4 things. I do management of capital projects. You see that happening left, right, and center right now. No pun intended, town center. You see the signs going up this week. That's a capital project. We had an earlier capital project, a large paving project, probably our largest in many years. 5 centerline miles of streets paved. For $1.5 million in Carefree Rolling Hills and Carefree Shadows in last fall. Capital projects require they require a lot of planning. They require design. They require bidding, solicitation. They require construction. So it's from soup to nuts. It's from start to finish. And I was involved in that, the wayfinding sign plan. I took that sign plan to market. I put together the scope for it. I took it out to bid. Collected bids, came before you several months ago for award of contract, and now we're seeing the final placement. A lot of steps involved there. The second thing I do is regulatory compliance, and that's kind of behind the scenes. That's just something that we get hit by the state often with what we sometimes term unfunded mandates. These are things like MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, that we're responsible for reporting on and maintaining. And they give us oversight, but they don't give us resources with which to do these things. So that's out of our pocket. We also have responsibilities on dust permits. We have a dust permit issued to us each year by the Maricopa County, and I work with Dustin and Travis and their colleagues who in Public Works who do their, who use the sweeper, and so that we're in compliance with the county dust control regulations. Regulatory compliance takes a lot of different forms. It can be fun sometimes. If you joined us at Earth Day, we were stenciling storm drains. So that is something that's in our permit. We're not required to do it. We're encouraged to do it. So that's our state permit with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, part of our MS4 program. The third thing I do is our streets. That is my my key statutory responsibility. If you open your code, you will see that that is what the town engineer is charged with doing, is maintaining the streets. And we do that in several forms. Obviously, the paving projects. We also issue right-of-way permits, encroachment permits, permits to people who want to dig up our streets or put signs in our streets or something in our streets. So making sure that that's done correctly and safely and appropriately is one of my key things. Takes up a goodly amount of time. And the final thing I do, the fourth thing I do in collaboration with my colleagues in planning and zoning and building, is development review. And development review is extraordinarily difficult and time-consuming and requires a lot of coordination with these folks. We have approached it as a team effort. We want to make sure that development is happening in this town in an orderly fashion in line with code and statute. That can be extraordinarily, it can be sometimes routine. The bulk of the work we do is single-family detached housing on large lots, obviously, and that's our land use pattern here. But that can change. That can change pretty regularly when we have a production builder project, such as The View, or such as the View's developer's next project across the street, potentially Vista Carefree. Those can be very time-consuming and labor-intensive for staff to review and to inspect. So those four things taken together, that's what I do. Did a lot of that this year. So we had the paving project, brought in $1 million under what you requested to budget last year. So you budgeted $2.5 million. We spent $1.543 million on that. And the reason we were able to get it less, there are a few things in our favor. Materials were favorably priced, and we ratcheted down the specifications in such a manner that we didn't compromise on specifications, but we simplified and streamlined the specifications so that we could get better bids. We could make it more comprehensible for bidders to approach us and partner with us. You recently, in your meeting in March, you agreed to the IGA with the Flood Control District of Maricopa County for funding for the very deserving whitewash at Leisure Lane Culvert Rehabilitation Project. That will be a wonderful project now that we're moving forward, approved by the county, in final coordination with district staff. We just completed a culvert inventory of our other culvert assets to try to identify perhaps some additional maintenance requirements. You see the town center sign plan, the wayfinding sign plan underway right now. MS4 training is something we do on an ongoing basis. That's now scheduled, our training for this year in a couple weeks. It was a long process. It started actually in 24, the Pima Road Corridor study. That was wrapped up. That was approved by MAG. We're busy. So 61 right-of-way permit applications. So that was up from 39 in calendar year 2024, so almost a third increase. That's a sign of robust development activity. So a lot of that trenching, a lot of that excavation in our streets happens when somebody's building a house across the street. They need Cox or APS or somebody to provide that utility from the utility on the other side of the street. And so that's where we get that involvement. The plan reviews are also up this year, more modestly, about 15%. We did 10%. We did 58 in calendar year 2024, 63 in the current year. Those are of grading and drainage plans and subdivision actions of various sorts, lot ties, lot splits, things like that. All indicators of robust construction activity or planned construction activity here. Also inspections to go along with that. To make it easier for people to navigate our process, we also routinely, on an ongoing basis, update our standards to make them transparent, to make it easier for people to navigate our process. So we provide them checklists, provide them with standard notes, things, guidance for how they can get through the process expeditiously.
Quick question.
Yes.
How much on that last slide, are you doing like full house build versus remodels, additions, things like that in your?
I haven't tracked that specifically, Councilmember Skirty, Mayor. I think my vague impression is that it seems to me as though probably half of the projects are new builds, probably the other half are casitas, accessory dwelling units. And there's a small minority of other projects such as standalone pools or walls or fences, things like that. But actually, it seems to be more, Robert might be able to speak to this more exactly. It does seem to be as though there is a more heavy preponderance of casitas recently. There's a lot of people, everybody wants a casita. Yeah. So, next slide, please. We have a lot coming up. So we have to bid. There's a whole another series of things we have to do to make sure that the whitewash at Leisure Lane Culvert gets built. We have to tighten up the construction drawings, the specifications, so that they're acceptable to the flood control district. We're working with the flood control district staff right now and also a consultant for that. The last year of our current 5-year pavement management plan happens this fall. We're hoping to be able to mill and overlay some of the next oldest streets, the least rehabilitated old streets remaining in Carefree after this year's project are in Carefree 4 and 4 more. That's north of the golf course. Those are some pretty beaten up streets because they've had a lot of construction, and there's a lot of construction right now currently in Serene at Concho, as a couple of you are aware. That will kind of nicely go away if we're able to pave those streets. What stands in our way are material prices this year. We are not in any way, shape, or form in as nice a position with material prices this year because of oil. Oil is embedded in asphalt, obviously. It's also used as fuel, diesel and gasoline, in the equipment that places and mills these projects. We'll see what we get. We'll go to market, see how responsive the market is to our budget, and we'll do what we can. If it's a good price, we can bring it to you for a contract award. If it's not, we might have to keep our powder dry. There will be some other smaller, probably culvert repairs and stream bank stabilization. We'll try to tee up alongside whitewash at Leisure Lane. We will undertake the next, hopefully, 5-year pavement management program, using similarly to what we did 5 years ago, the kind of an AI-assisted detection device for conditioning, characterization of the condition of our various streets, where we can tailor-make the treatments that we propose for different parts of our neighborhoods, different parts of our street network. We also, however, have, this will be an expense, every 5 years, ADEQ issues a new MS4 permit. And that permit is what we have to abide by. They're working on it right now. They will promulgate it probably in the fall. When they do so, that will trigger certain requirements, such as the preparation of a responsive, on our part, stormwater management plan. We have typically hired a consultant to do that. It's about a $20,000, $25,000 effort. So that's something we will have to get in line with. It also triggers some analyte measurement. So we are required to sample at certain points throughout our community the stormwater and send it off to a lab to test it to make sure that it's not full of benzene or lead or arsenic or things that can occur in stormwater. And then we'll continue our MS4 efforts to make it kind of a culture community effort across our public works staff. So we have some challenges ahead with these unfunded mandates, with dust and MS4, especially in the coming year. Some potentially significant development. So we talked about earlier, Kristen talked about the receipts from construction. Year to year, year over year, there was a bit of a decline because one of the big production projects, The View, had fallen off. That might change in calendar year 27 anyway, if not fiscal 27 or 28, and that will be, there's a real potential for some large projects to come to the fore that will require some real careful pencil sharpening in terms of development review. And we might well need, as we needed with Solus, some customized development review assistance when there are specialty issues. So that's kind of a risk we want to budget for as well. So some special challenges and some special opportunities coming in engineering in the coming fiscal year.
So the potential big projects that might be coming, is that things we don't know about, or like Stage Creek and that's going to be getting developed, or what is that? Or can you say?
Councilmember Skirty, thank you, Mayor. The Solace is pretty much, it's going to be a package of 31 individually developed lots. So it's, from my perspective, not to be flippant through development review, it's pretty much a done deal. They have been fully entitled and they're underway with their infrastructure. And now it will be 31 individual lots to be reviewed. That's our bread and butter. We do a lot of that. I mentioned we did 61 this year. So if 31 of those 61 next year might logically be Solace Stage Creek projects. However, there is no such thing as easy land to build on in Carefree anymore. Every piece of land that's going to be developed in Carefree, with a very few exceptions, is very hard to build on. It's got a huge wash running through it. It's got erosion potential because it's on a mountainside. It's got impairments. And so some of these large projects that are being proposed have exactly some of these impairments. They have a large wash running through them in 2 cases. Another case, well, they all do. All of them have large washes running through them. And that requires special things like retaining walls, cutoff walls, things that are not elementary development review, things that require some special analysis on their part to produce and our part to review. So if any of these projects fires off, it will require a lot of careful attention. The view was very time-consuming for certainly the building department staff, probably my predecessor, although I never met my predecessor and spoke to him about it. Vista Carefree would similarly sized, be similarly impactful on staff review resources. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Next, you'll hear from Travis Johnson. He is our supervisor of the Public Works Department. I remind you, Public Works covers not only our streets, which is the priority, also our public infrastructure, so our town buildings, and they also have been very involved with our desert gardens, as well as management and maintenance of our equipment and our entire fleet.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. Hello, Mayor and Council. My name's Travis Johnson. I've worked for the town for 30 years this September. 23 or 24 of those I've been your Public Works Director. One of the things that Kristen and I talked about when she was helping me get ready for my presentation that stuck out in my head was, she said, talk about what you're proud of. One of the things what makes me proud of this town and working here is just the fact that everything we do in Public Works has a direct relation to keeping every person that drives through this town safe. And 2, everything we do has a relation to making everyone that lives in this town proud to live in this town. And that's what keeps me here for 30 years. So with that said, sorry, I don't like talking.
Well said.
So with that, I'm sorry. A little list of our accomplishments that help keep us proud. And that's not just me, that's Dustin and Phil and Bobby. They all feel the same way. Every time we're working the gardens, we're working in the streets, we have people come up and say, you know, this town looks great, the gardens look great, you guys do a great job. It makes everybody feel proud. Every time somebody comes up to them, they come back to the shop and they say, hey, you're not going to believe somebody said this today. Hey, somebody said this to us today. And it really does help. So some of the things that we've accomplished this year, CJ kind of hit on the MS4 stuff. Like we have to do a quarterly report over at our shop in our building to make sure that we're keeping it neat and clean and orderly. Bobby has recently gone through some training for MS4 to help us learn what we need to be doing and help him learn some more about, because he's taking over doing those reports for me. We replaced the inoperative Peterbilt dump truck that we've had for almost 30 years. And we got a new dump truck and a new water truck that we'd never had before. And those two pieces of equipment have already proven to be invaluable to us with helping to blade our shoulders and milling our shoulders so we don't have to worry about starting a fire when we're out mowing. They've been great. We help maintain the gardens, fountains, splash pads, irrigation on the pavilion, helping replace the floor in the visitor center, troubleshooting electrical problems and replacing light fixtures in the gardens, which, are ongoing and crazy. We're not electricians, but we do what we can. We help paint everything, all the walls in the gardens, fix doors in all the buildings. We support the town with special events, installing lighting, setting up tables, chairs, heaters, misters, helping Steve with the audio video for that. Provided tree and brush trimming along streets to address visibility and fire hazards, and that is such a big point for us that if we can't keep all those trees trimmed back and visibility on the corners, there's so many accidents. It's just, and people get mad at us for out trimming trees, but we're just trying to keep everybody safe. We provide 24/7 rapid response for material spills in streets, and that's also for accident cleanup. The four of us are on call all the time, and we'll get called at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and have to come in during storms and clean this stuff up, but we just do it. Implemented a contract for safe handling and removal of dead animals on the town roads, which was huge. Thank you, CJ. That was not a fun part of this job. But really what happened, we found out there's regulations have changed, and we can't just put them out in the desert and let the coyotes eat them. There's certain things that have to be done to dispose of properly, and we can't do that. So that's a huge help for us. Troubleshooting the digital radar speed signs in town. They have been the biggest headache I think we've ever had here. CJ and I are trying to find somebody that can come up and help us take care of those, but it's a project in itself. Swept and removed debris in streets and culverts after storms. Luckily this year we didn't have a whole lot for storms, but there was still a lot of cleanup. Graded shoulders of arterial streets to provide fire breaks and safe pullouts for vehicles. That's something that we do 4 to 5 times a year, just blading the shoulders on Cape Creek and Tom Darlington, and people don't even realize that we did it. CJ didn't even realize that they were in need to be done because they're just done. We remove trash and illegal dumping along town roadways. Every single Monday, pretty much without fail, the four of us, that's all we do is pick up trash. And as soon as we're done with one stretch, we can go back to the beginning and start all over again. It's ridiculous how much trash there is.
Can I ask you, because my husband and I were just driving the other day down Carefree Highway. Was that you guys with the green bags? Who
not
was
anymore.
that?
I would assume that was Scottsdale that did it. I didn't see them because that stretch belongs to Scottsdale.
Well, but it was on the right side. So
That's still Scottsdale. That stretch of road is Scottsdale. So the right of way there is Scottsdale. So that's theirs to maintain also.
There, honestly, there must have been
Well,
30 bags.
I saw that as well.
I was
yeah.
wow.
So we used to maintain that also, just because it was, there's roads that go into Carefree there, and people assume that it's Carefree. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I went to Gary one morning and said, I'm done picking up trash on Carefree Highway. People are throwing trash at me. They hit me with a beer bottle. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing that stretch anymore. So that's why there's 30 bags, because nobody's been doing it. We used to do that every Monday also.
Yeah, so sometimes that pickup is done by residents along Carefree Highway,
Well, I've done
and sometimes maybe it's done by the city of Scottsdale.
Right.
So I don't know
Right.
who did it this time, but it gets done
They
occasionally.
did a good job this time. Oh, yeah. We get that every day on Cape Creek Road, between here and Pima, or Desert Mountain, all of Tom Darlington on and the west side of town over by Lowe's. We get anywhere from 30 to 40 bags of trash every Monday. Yeah, it's crazy. And we had all illegal dumping this year that I've never seen before. Just landscapers would pull up into a cul-de-sac, dump their truck, and just go and leave it laying in the middle of the road. We probably picked up 15 to 20 different sites this year that we've never done that before.
Do you think it's because Maricopa County reduced the hours for their waste recycling
That
clinic?
probably doesn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should share that with them, that they're just basically dumping their responsibility on us.
Yeah,
Why not
it really has
staff
grown. It used to be once or twice a year somebody would do it, but now it's all the time. It's crazy. And they're getting braver and braver, just dumping it right in the middle of the road. They don't even try to hide it anymore. So, yeah. The other things we do, maintain and replace damaged and weathered traffic signs. Street signs we can't even keep up with. There's roughly 12 to 1,500 signs around town. And as soon as you get half of them up, the ones you started with are already faded and need to be replaced and damaged and stolen. I can't even count how many were stolen this year. And completed National Safety Council Work Zone Technician Training. This one was huge. My guys got to go and learn how to properly close off streets so that they can stay safe when they're out there. People can stay safe when they come up to a traffic zone and know that it's done the right way, and everybody goes home safe. So that's something that I've never had in 30 years. So we're working with Kristen, that training and stuff that we're gonna keep up and keep doing from here forwards. It's huge for us.
So have you considered one of those devices that goes on the back of a vehicle that it's like a barrier, like a gigantic mattress?
Yes, sir. They're
Someone
about
hit you from the
they're
rear?
about $300,000 a piece.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We talked about it, but yeah, they're crazy expensive. Right. The big thing is just we need to learn how to do things the right way instead of me thinking that it's 30 years ago and we can just put some cones out and be okay. It's not that way anymore. There's far too much traffic and far too many people on their phones not paying attention. So this will really help us stay safer out there. All right. So goals for next year: develop uniform standard for public works, work orders, contracting, and billing. Working with Kristen, we're going to put together literally work orders. We've never had those before that we can try, and we have so many people coming to us or calling, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this. I can't keep up with everybody. And having a work order system that we can help prioritize getting that stuff done will make a big difference. Contract for specialty gardens maintenance services to prioritize backlogs of repair of street signs and culverts and everything else in town. That's just, we need some help in the gardens. There's a lot of, I think the gardens are 22 or 23 years old. Stuff is getting old, especially that electrical. We need help. If we can get out of the gardens and back out on the streets more, it's just gonna help keep the town safer. And develop an on-call emergency response policy. For the last 27 years, the town's on-call emergency response has been call Travis. Literally call Travis. I need help with that. I'm not getting any younger, unfortunately. My family is growing. I'm going to be a grandpa in November, and I need to be able to spend time with my family and not worry about those calls all the time. Yeah. So that'll be huge. Thank you, Kristen. And integrate a fleet management and tracking technology for improved loss and theft prevention. For the first time in 30 years, we had something stolen, and unfortunately, it was something big. Our chipper that we used for tree trimming got stolen out of our yard, and we have now gotten cameras up on our yard, cameras in our parking lot. The new chipper that we just got on Monday has its own tracking system. So if somebody does steal it, I just call up Vermeer, I give them the town of Carefree, they look in their computer and it tells them exactly where it is. We can do that on all of our equipment. I don't know yet how much that's gonna cost, but all of our equipment can have that kind of technology too. And unfortunately, the big city is creeping this way, and we need to start paying attention to that stuff too.
So did you put in your budget for kind of hiring some outside services to kind of help with certain things on lighting and the gardens and things like that, so you guys don't have to do it all?
Yes, ma'am.
So that is in there? Okay.
Yeah, well, and I've actually got another company that I'm trying to get. I had an electrical company that was going to come up and look at our system and help me.
Okay.
They dropped the ball, and I can't even get an answer from them anymore. So I just talked to Jim, and I got another company that I can use. They're going to come out next week, walk the whole system with me, and come up with a game plan for what we can do to get it where it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you and I could chat.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Yeah, I would say it's key that you spend your time and effort doing things that you're really good at, and then these specialized things like the digital speed signs, like the electrical in the garden, like the electrical along Easy Street, those lights there, like the lights on the archway.
Yes,
These
sir.
are things that we should farm out.
Christmas
You can
lights.
spend your time doing things that you're really good at, and it's much more efficient.
Right. Christmas lights, we need to find somebody. We waste, what do we figure, CJ, 2 months? About 2 months a year just doing Christmas lights, taking them up and putting them down. We can do better. Our time's better spent out in the town, so. All right?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Nice job,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank
Yeah,
Travis.
you guys do a great job, and be proud of yourself and your whole crew. Tell them, they do, I've never heard a bad thing about your team, so.
Thank you, I appreciate hearing that, I'll let them know.
Yeah.
All right, thank
I want
you.
to second that too. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Travis. Council, just to give you a little preview, we're nearing the end of our department presentations. Community development will go next. That is planning and zoning. Stacy will cover the planning and zoning. She'll cover code compliance as well. And then Rob McCoy will present to you on building safety, and that will be the completion of the presentations. I will then show you some information on our capital improvement program, and we will summarize our workshop and end our day.
I could hear everybody's brains going, thank goodness. Thank you, Mayor, members of Town Council. Thank you, Kristen, for allowing me to follow Travis. I think one thing we should do is give Travis a round of applause for 30 years. I mean, I think that's so amazing. So, you're welcome. And so first I would like to start off thanking Kristen in a sense that really to create this community development department really was a keen sort of move in the sense that, and I'll try not to be redundant because both economic development, engineering, I mean, they have kind of covered a lot of things that that I do for the town, that we do for the town. But I think that what's important to understand too is that just having this umbrella with building and with code enforcement just really made a lot of sense, because even though that we're small, we sometimes get a little bit isolated in what we do, and there is a lot of overlap. And so when we have a chance to coordinate and organize together, it actually becomes much more efficient. And so I think it made sense in terms of building and code enforcement. One thing about building, it starts with planning, really. I mean, you plan something, and for one way or another, it starts that way, and eventually it develops into something being built. Northeast Corner came up as a perfect example. I mean, there was a plan to have a land use that went back many, many years before our current general plan to be a commercial development. It became entitled. Now we're looking to actually work with a developer and get it built. So that's actually really exciting and very satisfying. Code enforcement as well. I mean, I'm the zoning administrator also, which I think you all know. And so it ties codes, zoning, regulations all together. We work closely together, being the zoning administrator also, is that a lot of times we have to interpret regulations in certain ways and then move forward and determine if a case needs to be made. And so I think that all together, it just kind of loops back. And one thing I really like, though, is Ruben calls me boss. And so I think Robert should take note on that. But in any case, so what I do or what we do is planning. I had support at one time. I'm hoping to get continued support. But we basically provide professional oversight and coordination for all land use planning and development activities. I mean, basically anything that is being thought about or looking to be developed kind of crosses my desk, and then together we work on making that happen. I also we administer the zoning regulations. We facilitate public participation processes, which are really important in my mind. And we try to stay consistent with all of our town policies. The last thing, and this is actually under Samantha Gazelle, was we do maintain official planning records and also serve as the Carefree Cave Creek Memorial Cemetery. So I think that stays with Samantha now that she's our town clerk, as well as archiving our records. But I will go through what our accomplishments were, and together we were responsible for some of those things. So what we accomplished this year is we've managed many state-required text amendments. We looked at new subdivisions, just approved our various types of zoning applications, again, working together with both building and sometimes engineering, as well as economic development. I did lead the consultant selection for our zoning ordinance update, which, as Kristen goes back to our strategic plan, that was an important initiative. We'll continue to do so. We have formed a citizen working group. We had our first meeting last week, which went really well. Have a really great, diverse group of interested citizens, not some of the and new people that I've never met before. As well as I just want to put a plug in that we do have our community workshop, the first one for the zoning ordinance update on April 29th. I think Madison mentioned that. We have standardized procedures for fair and consistent code enforcement, and together with that also managing a code enforcement internal working group. That was what was happening, is different people were working on some of the same things, and we just needed to kind of come together and organize and understand what are the cases, what are the issues out there, and how can we solve them? How can we bring people into compliance? Because that is really part of that is the goal. And that we created procedures that's kind of the mission statement of those procedures, is to how do we bring people into compliance? And if we can't, what are the steps to fairly notify? And eventually, unfortunately, if it goes to a point where people don't want to comply, then it becomes a matter of the courts. How it's written in our ordinance is what we enforce. We did not make up these rules. These are your zoning ordinance, your town code. We are just enforcing as we see what the priorities are and the values of today. Sometimes you read regulation and you don't understand why, but there's a reason why, because there's a value that makes us a good community, and that's why it's written the way that it is. But definitely room for modification and understanding. I did also contribute to the town strategic plan update. I was also part of helping implement SmartGov. I'm not going to take credit for that. I'm going to give Samantha credit for that, and Robert carries that on. I brought it forward to you to purchase the software, but Samantha organized and got the software moving forward, working with the consultants, and Robert now, together with Samantha, we troubleshoot together, because software is not perfect, but it does a lot better than it did without it. I also oversaw, and again, this goes to Samantha as well, overseeing the Carefree Cave Creek Cemetery. We had an access project, as well as we just have general maintenance, which is really great. I don't want to forget some of our the data and some of our accomplishments, because I think that's what's really most important. We had 39 zoning applications and pre-applications. Now, not all of those become cases, but they are time that we take with the development community, whether it's somebody building a home or somebody that wants to build a new subdivision or develop a shopping center. But we were very active. We have 19 public meetings, hearings, and work sessions, so we've been busy with the public. For planning and zoning, we've had building permit reviews. CJ touched upon that a bit. Robert will do so more, but this was just related to the planning side of permitting. And as well as we also had over 183 site inspections. Once again, we don't do inspections for every permit, but that's quite a hefty load for our permits that we did review and took a look at. So with that, if you could go to the next slide, Kristen, we'll kind of look at what our goals are for this year. We're obviously going to continue to manage the comprehensive update for the Carefree zoning ordinance. It's very exciting. I think that it's time. The ordinance hasn't been updated since 2004. There have been steps of updating it, but I think we need to do a comprehensive look, and I'm glad that we're moving on that. Through the strategic planning process, we did identify, or you all did identify, that you wanted to do a townwide zoning overlay district for, actually it's not townwide, it's the town center zoning overlay district, to be included with the zoning update overall. So that came out of the positioning plan, again, trying to figure out a way to create a better, more vibrant town center. We do work with economic development. We're working with Steve to finalize that circulation and parking plan, as well as when any type of economic development initiatives come in that have some sort of land use or interest in a property. Steve and I work together to try to figure out how to make that development happen. We do conduct administrative reviews and approvals of major commercial development projects within the town. I mentioned the northeast corner. We are there, now that state law has changed, that we are the administrative reviewer. So when projects come forward, similar to like our larger residential projects as Vista Carefree, we'll be looking at that from an administrative level. Happily but reluctantly, I am a believer in the public process, but I'll have to talk to our state about that. There'll be continued management of the Carefree Cave Creek Cemetery, implementing some new improvements. There's a request for some culvert work. And lastly, just going to continue to effectively manage our new community development department. So with that said, the things that we're asking for the continued funds for completion of the zoning ordinance update, as well as incorporating funds to include the zoning overlay district into the update process, and then some of the cemetery improvements, as I mentioned, a special project for some culvert work. So I'm happy to answer any questions before we move into code compliance. Not one. I mean, it was perfectly clear. I'm just teasing.
In the strategic plan.
It
so
was.
We had a clue.
I agree. No, I'm just teasing. That's fine. We'll just continue to roll on. So I'm here to speak about code enforcement. As you know, I mean, code enforcement has been highlighted this year. It was a community priority, and that's probably why it's been more prevalent this time forward. But in essence, I'm going to tell you what Ruben does. Basically, Ruben Contreras manages most of code enforcement. Then I'll tell you what he did. But he ensures compliance with the town codes through investigation of complaints and proactive enforcement activities. He is keen on investigation. I mean, there is nothing better that he does. Well, he does everything really great. But I think what's so important about investigation is the fact that, there's always a couple sides of a story, but when he gets the facts, that's how we are able to move forward. He also does support the court, which includes bailiff activities or his duties. He administers business licenses and other permits such as short-term rentals, as well as he coordinates the emergency management functions with the county and regional partners, and basically he supports the front counter. He's Debbie's backup, but I think he's there just as much as Debbie is to help customers that come into town hall. So with that, I kind of want to start with some of Ruben's, with the data and his accomplishments, in the sense that he has processed 15 short-term rentals. He's projecting to do more. This will come later when I talk about what one of our asks is, because short-term rental is actually income for the town. And I think there's more out there than 15 to 25 to 30. And so we have a software that gives us that information, and we'll talk about what they can also further do for us. He's processes 599 business licenses. That's a lot of business licenses. He's also issued 381 vendor certificates. So as Madison talked about, when there's festivals in place, he has to do the vendor licenses. And so he's also investigated 86 compliance issues or cases. He's projecting more. But what I think is important in that number 86 is that it doesn't talk about, while there's 86 total, it doesn't talk about how many were successes and people that came into compliance. I would say it's the majority of that number.
Quick
yeah.
question.
Mm-hmm.
So on those numbers, two questions.
Mm-hmm.
The business license, 170 in town. Where are the rest? I mean,
right. I mean, we do have a lot of licenses that are, for example, if you are a contractor, you have a license in town.
Okay.
Other kind of activities like that. There are some home businesses that still, you would have a business license to operate.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah.
And then the short-term rentals, so you're projected, so you think in the town of Carefree, there's probably about 25 to 30, and you're hoping to get those.
right, that's what Ruben's projecting, and so, and we can talk about that, we can talk about it now. We have a software that's called Rentalscape, and it identifies in all different phases that people have short-term rentals. And legislation allowed us a few years back, which many of you may recall, that we have at least some arm in regulating how these may operate. We cannot restrict them, we cannot deny them, as long as they participate based on the rules and requirements that we have. And so one of the most important rules is that they register with the town, because for them to register with the town, that means they have to have a business license and a TPT license, because you basically get revenues similar to a hotel or a bed tax from short-term rentals. So it's really important. It's hard to identify them, I think I would say, because recently we had some bad actors a few years back, but we haven't had any complaints about short-term rentals in a very long time. So I guess that's the upside, right? I mean, they're operating properly. They're not creating nuisances in neighborhoods. But if they're there, we are still to receive the taxes that are imposed upon these uses in the town. And so if there's 15, if there's 25 or 30, we want to make sure that they're all compliant and that we have them registered. And I believe there can be even more, because the software identifies where they are active. And what they sometimes do is they try to show they're active, and then they go inactive for a short period of time, and they go active again. So the software allows us to track that. And what I think is important is that there potentially are so many more that we're looking to do more of like a letter campaign and notifying these properties that we know that you're a short-term rental and you need to register. And so this campaign will allow us to give them 3 notices. 1, hey, we know you're there, register. The follow-up if they haven't, and the third, if you haven't registered, this becomes a code enforcement issue. But I think the importance goes back to the fact that this is a use that's generating income that the town may not be receiving at the moment.
And I would argue it goes above and beyond a revenue stream. Our regulations require some safety features into these homes. So we're providing a service.
True, absolutely,
We're providing
right.
a service to the
Right.
to the tenant, and we're providing a service to the owner because it keeps them out of trouble.
Right, right. And I think it helps, it's a liability to the town as well, correct? So if we've notified them of their requirements to comply with these safety standards, then if something does happen or if they don't comply, then the town has put its best foot forward to make sure that they do. So I did kind of jump ahead on that, but I thought it was an important one. Code enforcement works with other departments that are engaged in code enforcement tasks, such as with the planning department, with the building department, engineering, public works. We all kind of work together. Sometimes somebody will see something out there and bring it to the group. So, like I said, he processes licenses, certificates for short-term rentals, and long-term rentals as well. And last, he was working, the code enforcement worked on coming into compliance with state law and firearm storage and town hall and council chambers. And so kind of had some special projects that Ruben wanted to bring forward. So with the next slide, his goals. And so you'll see the first several have to do with emergency management. In general sort of emergency planning and operations. And so that's a really vital, I think, role that Ruben does that doesn't always come to light. So I think his focus is bringing the town forward and making sure that we're up to date on all of those types of plans and operation manuals. He'll continue to work with planning and zoning. He's also going to work on the comprehensive update to understand, because his role of being enforcing that, I think his voice is important in that. He'll continue to process business licenses, vendor certificates, as well as investigate code violations as they come to us. He'll continue to complete continuing education. He has certain certifications that are necessary for him to be sure that he maintains. as well as we talked about the short-term rental licenses and bringing it into compliance. So one of the asks is to upgrade our Rentalscape software to include a notification campaign, for lack of better words, because to send letters and to make sure that to the number that we're dealing with and keeping track of those is just another thing to put on somebody's plate that he just has already a very loaded plate at the moment. So I can answer any questions for code enforcement either. That's a yawn. That's not good.
No, I do have one, or maybe it's a comment for you, but based on what you showed that Ruben is doing, I see almost the same thing as I said about finance. And you said he's bailiff as well. Might it be better to find a part-time bailiff and let him concentrate on all of these? And that seems to me to be kind of a path you might want to consider.
Mayor Crane, Councilmember Johnson, that is absolutely something that we're looking into, as well as probably Kristen will go into a little bit more detail, is providing Ruben additional hours through the week, additional 2 days per month. So he had originally come to work the 4 days a week, but I think, he sees his plate full and I think he wants to get things accomplished, so he's requested an additional 2 days a month. So we're going to get some more hours from him, as well as possibly look at somebody to substitute in his bailiff duties. So, yep. Okay. Great, thank you.
Excellent presentation. And yes, so you'll see an increase when you see the numbers for salaries. Our code compliance officer was hired at a 32-hour work week. So he works 16 hours less per pay period during 8-hour pay period. But what he's doing now is he'll do a 32-hour work week, then a 40-hour work week. So we're actually getting 16 more hours. And that does show an increase to the numbers on his salary. Because of that, we're getting 16 more hours, but that is certainly something we need. In addition to that, we do have a backup bailiff, so if we need even more, let's say we need to get Ruben back to about 24 hours instead of 16 more hours, we can use the backup bailiff as well. So we'll try that for this year. We'll see how that works, and then going forward, we'll look at what we can do with that. But it was kind of a stopgap approach, and Ruben was very gracious in offering to do that. So next we'll hear from, last but not least, the newest member of our staff, Rob McCoy, our building official. He's been with us since June of 2025.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Robert McCoy. I'm Chief Building Official for the town of Carefree. So what I do is simply complicated. I'm just responsible for all of the inspections, plan review, processing of building permits, anything related to building in town, existing buildings, alterations. Also work with Also work with Ruben and the business license side of things, and just doing the C of O inspections for him. So we work collaboratively with developers, contractors, property owners to resolve technical issues, promote safe construction practices, including guidance related to stormwater management, which is, how the site drains, swaddle, fencing, things like that, relation to washes. Work with CJ on that. I'm typically collaborating with another department at any given time. So not a lot to say about it, because it is kind of a simple lane that I stay in, but it does get complicated from time to time. So our accomplishments from last year, so it's basically from about when I started, we have about 4,500 inspections. This is a rough number. It is up from last fiscal year. One thing I foresee happening with these inspection numbers is as we streamline our process and go into this digital portal system, and I'm able to kind of get in there and tweak things to kind of make it so an inspection that should be one inspection is just one inspection instead of 6 different things that they call in. So the numbers will kind of decrease, but it's just because we're kind of streamlining the process. For example, a rough frame inspection could be 5 different inspections when it could just be a rough combination frame inspection. So those types of numbers, I just wanted to warn you for next year, they could change a little bit. 40 single-family projects. That's to include things that we finished, reviewed, and then are currently under construction. It's a pretty high number. People have a hard time believing it, but if you do go drive around, you will see there's a lot of single-family homes under construction. Plus, in our plan review queue, it's just kind of it's growing. In addition to what the other departments have said with the challenging lots that we have left, I could see a slowdown in single family just as we run out of lots that are easily built upon, but it's really hard to say because in other jurisdictions they're seeing slowdowns, which is related to finance issues. In our area, not a lot of people are in need of financing, so their projects can kind of roll on while other jurisdictions may not be able to. So I have noticed that trend here. 38 commercial safety inspections. These are where we just go out to existing businesses or new brick and mortar businesses and we just ensure safety and compliance at a bare minimum. We're not trying to push anybody around or create, situations where they don't need to be. We try to work with them, we try to educate, try to do as much outreach as we can in those situations. But in any enforcement situation, unfortunately, working in the world of enforcement, it's not always good news. And so, occasionally when that happens, we try to work with them as best we can. So that is a big part of it. So moving forward, I would also bring in the accomplishment, I apologize, is we did launch the digital permitting system. So as I take the reins on that, this year is going to be just streamlining the processes, tuning everything in for the user so that they have an easier time using it. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback so far on the system, but just from the large amount of time I spend in the system, I can see a lot of things down the line that are going to need to be adjusted and tuned in. And it's kind of similar. What I've been describing it to the other team members is it's like if we went on a trip and we took the whole dresser and not necessarily exactly what we needed. So some of the permits are asking for extra requirements. Some aren't asking for requirements that we needed. And it's just the amount of information in the portal and how quickly it happened. It's just a symptom of it that we can't really avoid. But I will be working on that over the next year. So hopefully we'll get more positive feedback and more, user just compliance in general. Because a lot of times I find work without a permit is because of lack of education or just not wanting to participate in the system. So if we can bring people into the system a little more, communication, outreach, all of those things, we as a town will get more compliance, and at the same time our citizens will be happier to work with the building departments, which is always a challenge, and I'm up for that.
Yeah, I would just say as an observation that the implementation of the portal and SmartGov, it's a lot of work, but it really pays off.
It does.
But it took a lot of effort on your part and other members of the staff to get it up and running. It's a powerful tool, and you'll be able to do more stuff. I don't know what it is, but there's more aspects to this SmartGov that'll make everyone's life easier.
Absolutely, Mayor. And I'm excited to see what we can do with it. I really am, because we're just at the early stages now. And just the ability to access all the information in the field is just incredible. The streamlining of the information flow to the applicant, to the contractor, I mean, all of it. And I'm getting the same feedback from the field. And I would say, without actual statistics, I'm at a point now where I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm getting positive feedback. And that one that I'm not, once I can get a hold of them and work with them, we're getting there. And sometimes they become the biggest fans. So it's been really cool to see and watch that happen. It happened really fast, and it was kind of like drinking out of a fire hose in the beginning. But we just have just kind of stuck with it. I have to give credit to Sam for that, for encouraging the hard line on the launch, which I think was a good way of doing it. So our goals for 26-27, we're going to continue to streamline those processes, improve customer service. I'm just looking for an overall just willingness to work with us. And nothing really more past that. If we could just get there, I would be happy. We'll continue to partner with the fire marshal on commercial building safety inspections. I work with Rural Metro at least on a weekly basis. We stay very much in touch on everything going on. I usually deal with Ryan Wick. He's amazing to deal with. And he gives me information I need, I give information he needs, and we're able to effectively, enforce the town codes without, it's easy to come across heavy-handed or inconsiderate, and I think in those situations it helps eliminate those byproducts. Evaluation, implementation, and adoption of the 2024 I-Code. So currently, we have a 2018 code adoption right now. There's some things in our amendments and in our code adoption that can be changed and probably should be changed. And then with the 2024 I-Codes, we're going to see a lot of modern adjustment for the electrical, just things to kind of lessen up the cost to the builder and the restrictions overall. So I'm really excited to get the 2024 codes adopted, as well as the 2023 NEC. Along with that will be all of the outreach required, updating forms, checklists, all of those types of things, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. But overall, we're looking at a lot of growth and work and in line with what CJ said and those types of things. But I'm excited for how things are going to look over the next year with just overall just citizen involvement and getting back into working with the building department. I'd like to see lower numbers of work without a permit, which I'm already seeing. When I first started, there was several jobs going on without a permit at any given time, and right now I can't tell you of any. So just general communication, being willing to work with these people, not jumping to conclusions is, these types of things are going to be very important as we move forward and grow and try not to lose our identity and make sure our citizens are happy with us, I think. So that's it. And forgive me, this is my first time doing this. So
Yeah, so when we implemented the 2018, I think it was quite an undertaking. I think Tibbet did.
It is, yeah.
So, is this going to consume 25% of your time? Or
It's
what are you
going
looking
to,
at?
I'm trying to clear my plate currently. That's my goal, is to have a fully clear plate so that I can take this on. Because, yeah, it is an undertaking once you begin. And it would be about, some days, 25% of my time, I would dedicate, especially with the meetings.
Do you expect it to be completed in the next fiscal year?
I would like to have it done by the end of this calendar year, but I think that would be a push. So yeah, I'm just to next June seems a little bit of a stretch, hopefully before that. But yes, it's just once we get into the process and get through the meetings and get things approved, it could happen pretty quickly.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah, any questions?
So of the 40 residential new builds, how many hours does it take for you to do the plan review until you issue a building permit?
So I usually put like a general average, I would say like 4 to 8 hours on a building review for a first review. That's what I would budget on that. And then second review, it's really hard to say because I get some plans here where I don't even get the structural calcs, so it's almost an incomplete first review. So then the second review could go back into that upwards of 8-hour review. But I would say 4 to 6 hours on the second review, depending on the plans.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big time commitment.
Some of
in addition
them
to
are.
everything else that you've described. So you're busy.
Well, my primary function would be inspection and plan review, as you know, and the amount of time I dedicate to that is, I have to share time with all of these other things. And typically maybe this number of inspections or this number of plan reviews would be a full-time gig, but I think it's with the town of Carefree, we all just kind of take on what we can and, just communicate to our leadership how we're doing, and see how it goes. But that is, and that leads me to my largest ask, which is the 75 for the contract. So That's just any sort of backup I would need to maintain timeframes on plan reviews, or, for example, with the Solace project, they're doing a lift station or a forced main sewer system for their private sewer. We're going to use contract inspectors for that, so those types of things. So I'm going to try to use that to kind of balance things out over the year.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, good job, Rob. I think bringing you in was probably one of the best things we did. Having our own building inspector, not using a third party, is phenomenal. I've heard a lot of really good things about what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
You look at it, you do it with common sense, and I think that's very important, so good job.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So any other questions? All right, thanks for putting up with me on that one. Thank you.
Okay, no, well done, thank you.
Great job, Rob. Thank you. So, I just have to say, I mean, you guys have heard me say this before. One of the reasons that I said, oh, I could be town administrator in Carefree is because of this staff, right? The dedication, the thoughtfulness, and the caring that they put into everything they do. Just because Rob was the last, he self-started on the code updates, on the IC updates. He said, I want to do this. How can I get it done, right? I didn't say you have to do this next year. He said he wanted to. That's this whole entire staff. They are always trying to do better. And I'm so proud of all of them, just only being here a year and so many months working with them. So I just wanted to say that to everyone. Thank you all so much for everything you do every day. Okay, now I'm just going to summarize capital planning for us right now. Kind of switch to the other side of our budget. And then we'll do a summary of today, and then we'll be done for the afternoon. I know it's always long when you're sitting there. So as you know, pay-as-you-go is how we operate our capital planning. This leads to no debt, which, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is critical. We preserve our assets first. That is really what it comes down to. What we already own, what we already have, we need to make sure that we are maintaining and preserving. And we always have an eye towards the long-term sustainability. So what do we have that's changing here in Carefree? We have infrastructure that's aging. We have that build-out nearing completion. And of course, we have the rising costs that are associated, like CJ mentioned about with what we have going on with pavement management. So you'll see here what our FY25 budget was for capital improvement program and what was budgeted for FY26. Our estimated at year end, I believe that we'll still see a higher year end because of the fact that the town center signage plan has begun, so we should be getting billed for that soon. So you may see, by the time we even get to next week, the $400,000 for the town center signage plan going into the year-end estimate here and being taken out over on the proposed budget. But overall, what we have in the capital improvement plan for this coming budget for fiscal year 27, you'll see we have the $1 million set aside for the town center. That includes parking, sidewalks, general improvements. We have the construction project for the culvert at Whitewash, which our town engineer secured us a grant for, which means we paid the $450,000, but we estimate back about $340,000 in grant funding. We've removed the town center EV grant, as that's went away and is not being funded by the state, or was it the county? One or the other. County. Thank you, Mayor. We have set aside for the $1 million for open space grants. And again, when we talk about grants, they're not money in the bank. It's the same thing with capital planning. We have to be very cautious. And then for this year, we have the same budget that we had last year for pavement management, and that's for 4 and 4 more that CJ discussed earlier. With approval, the project will bid it out, but we will be cautious and determine, obviously, bring to you, the council, what we receive as far as feedback and bidding from our RFP for further discussion. So that would be the capital improvement plan for this year. So what we always have to remember is the reality of capital planning. For us, we have limited resources, we have growing needs, and there are trade-offs that are always required when it comes to capital planning. I come from the land of 10-year capital planning, and I worked for the same agency for 25 years. If you look at what we capital planned in the first 10 years I was there, we achieved half of it. If you look at what we capital planned in the last part of my career there, we achieved a quarter of it. So, and that's in a city that's $1 billion budget. And part of that is because changing needs, the economy, a number of factors always are involved in our capital planning. So prioritization and discipline are the best ways to capital plan. It helps create a better future for our town. So we need to preserve our existing assets, limit our new obligations when we can, and always align our capital needs with our long-term funding strategies. So does anyone have any questions on capital planning? This is a quiet group today. You better all not show up at my office tomorrow with a lot of questions, okay?
Yeah, you warned us out.
All right, so in summary, I heard some things today. One is I heard we should take a look at maybe including in the budget for a position that can help transition our accounting and our finance piece. I think, are you all satisfied with how we're going to operate the code compliance for now with getting that extra 16 hours back per month? Okay, so that's an increase to our budget. You've heard from our staff about engineering specifically, building specifically, how we have some professional fees built in to provide for these overages, to provide for Brown & Brown to do some of Rob's so that he can move us forward with our code development. We've got CJ, a number of different projects that will need specialized assistance, so we've seen an increase in that. We have some staffing changes. We're going to reclassify and get a planner for planning and development. We are going to reclassify our court clerk to a deputy court clerk. And generally, you've seen what we want to do for capital improvement. So what is it that you would like to see in the budget that I haven't thought about or made room for already? How can I prepare?
So some of the contract usage will be paid for through fees, correct?
Yes. That is a very good point, Councilmember. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, there is. Again, it goes back to, if you look at the $1.4 million that we anticipate generating and that we did generate this past year for our cost recovery fees, there is a price build out for that as well.
And then also, the financial software, that definitely will be helpful when Jim decides to go travel the world. For anyone new coming in, all of the information will be in the system. Well, a good portion of the information will be in the system and should make that transition easier.
I am hopeful, yes. I think that the biggest challenge is when you have someone in the same position for 25 years, that the position is not only focused on the accounting and finance aspect, and then you've got treasury built out, right, through a treasurer. You have a bifurcated system, which we need to have because that's how you have your checks and balances. But when that accounting and finance person has went above and beyond the accounting role is where you have a challenge, right? So that's where I'm trying to this year figure out. We've given benefits to Debbie, our office manager, and also our front desk receptionist, who you all see regularly. I've taken on the HR piece and I've taken on the risk management piece. So we're trying to take some of those things off his plate, so getting that better feel for what the work is. And that I budgeted $15,000 for that workflow. So what I'd like to do is initially do the workflow in the fall as we're doing the startup of the new system, and that will help me determine what exactly we will need going forward.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
I would just say, that was a good comment about recovering some of these costs, right? So when we hire someone to help us out with say some engineering that we don't have maybe the know-how or the capacity in-house, the developer pays for it like they did at Sonoran West. Or if we bring in, say, Brown and Associates to give us some more capacity for building inspections, there's a building fee or building permit fee behind that that pays for it. So it's how it should work.
Yes, and it does.
It does,
It all
yeah.
evens out at the end. Remember what I said in the beginning about how in private or in a private business, you can use your money for whatever you want, right? But in government, we have to be very careful because there are certain things we can use our money for, and there's certain funds where we can't use our money. So that all comes down to it. The cost recovery fees go back into our general fund and supplements our general fund, which is where we pay those costs out of.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other comments?
Just an amazing amount of work, and it was all well presented, and I think we've got a good start to go forward.
Yes, an education for everyone. Because even though I'm in there a lot, and a lot of our other council people are around a lot, but we have you never really have an appreciation for everything that goes on here. So thank you to everyone.
Great job, everybody, the staff, your new position, wonderful.
Yeah, well
Thank
done,
you.
Kristen.
Thank
You
you
have
very
one budget workshop under your belt. You did good.
Okay, and we got one more to go next Tuesday at 2
So
o'clock.
next Tuesday, we need martinis at the end.
You got it. So again, my goal is, based on today's discussion, I should be able to release the budget book. It will be what we consider the draft budget book for April of 2026. You all will have a decent amount of time to review that now. I'll get it out tomorrow. Two things. One is for those of you who love to print, print it in black and white. That way you don't kill your printers at home, or let me know if you want us to print it in the office. The other part of it is it will be available so that you can use it online. Right now, it will be in a PDF form, but it won't be linked. When the budget book is final, all the table of contents will be linked to the specific sections. So just keep that in mind. It'll be scrolled through right now and not linked. I really want to thank Madison and Jim. Madison has been working very closely with me the past week or so to get all of this put together and to make it look wonderful and professional. And Jim has just worked really hard to, we've been changing numbers every day, so both of them have been exceptional. And as you can see from the presentations, each of our staff members participated in this budget process. I've met with them individually at least two times, and they've all provided their goals, their accomplishments, their data about the year. So this was a group effort, and an incredible group effort, and next year's going to be so much better. Head Start, right? I'll start in January. We'll have that new financial system. We're tracking right now for the Distinguished Budget Award. So it's really nice to be in a budget process where I actually feel excited about the next one already. First time for everything, right?
Yeah, well,
So
we
thank
can't-
you
we
so
can't
much.
wait. Okay. All right, so I think that wraps it up, so we'll adjourn the workshop. Okay, thank you, everybody.